Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. To bring in the movie called, What If Lupin Was Isekai and Became Op. This crossover what if is actually going to be of even given the worthless, appraiser, class, I'm actually the strongest and solo leveling. Listen here YouTube, I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 1. Death and Reborn with New Power. Narrator. People who are watching this or reading this, my name is Lupin. You might be wondering how a master thief, the greatest in all of existence, ended up as a garbage collector for adventurers. Why? You might ask yourself, why did this happen to me? It wasn't by choice. One moment, I was Arsène Lupin III, and the next, I was here, in another world, and my team, the people I trusted, left me behind. In this world, I learned a harsh truth: not everything was created equal. All living things were never born equal. In this world, there is always a status, a hierarchy. If you have great power, you're a king or a general. If you have a decent skill, like a major swordsman, you can live comfortably. But if your power is weak, you're treated like trash. And trust me, I would know. All I got was appraisal magic, considered the most useless skill of all. The dungeon air was thick with the stench of damp stone and dead things. Lupin, dressed in ragged clothes, dragged a sack behind two adventurers, Zoid, a brutish swordsman, and Jolene, a mage with a cruel smile. "Hey, loser. Hurry it up with the loot," Zoid barked, not even glancing back as he kicked the corpse of a giant rat. "We don't have all day for the garbage disposal to do his job." Lupin's jaw tightened, his hands curling into fists. He was the world's greatest thief, forced to gut rodents for these amateurs. He focused on the task, slicing out a mana stone with practiced, if resentful, efficiency. He was doing his hardest not to snap. His restraint earned him a boot to the face. The world exploded in pain as he hit the cold, hard ground. "Useless," Jolene sneered, stepping over him. "Don't dawdle." That night, their cruelty escalated. While Lupin slept, exhausted, they tied him to a chair, forcing him to watch as they laughed and caroused just feet away, mocking his powerlessness. Fury. It burned in his veins hotter than any fire. He still had his gun, hidden away. But with limited ammo, would it be enough? He had to bide his time. The next day, they encountered a pack of hellhounds. The fight was fierce, and Zoid, enraged by a scratch, took it out on Lupin the moment it was over. "Should have warned us, appraiser," Zoid roared, stomping on Lupin's back. Jolene cackled, weaving a spell. "Let's make sure he doesn't get in the way. Paralyze." A wave of magical energy seized his muscles, locking his body rigid. He collapsed to the ground, a prisoner in his own flesh. Is the world really this cruel to people who only have weak powers? He looked down, saying nothing. Anger, rage, and a profound sense of betrayal consumed him. All he had ever wanted was a little respect. But in this world, strength was the only currency that mattered. Then, the ground trembled. A cave-in, triggered by the earlier battle. Rocks tumbled, sealing the entrance. In the panic, Zoid and Jolene saw a side corridor and fled, leaving the paralyzed Lupin for dead. As the dust settled and the spell wore off, Lupin was alone in the darkness. He stumbled to his feet, his body screaming in agony. He saw the corridor they had taken was completely blocked. But there was another path, a narrow fissure in the rock. A quarter of a chance, he thought, desperation fueling his steps. Let this be something of good luck. But luck had abandoned him. The corridor led to a sheer cliff, a dead end overlooking a misty abyss. He stood at the edge, the wind whipping at his tattered clothes. Everything he had believed in was gone. He was once the world's greatest thief, a legend. Now, he was a simple nobody, left to die in a hole. A wave of absolute despair washed over him. "There's nothing left for me here," he whispered to the void. And he stepped off the cliff. The fall was a blur of rushing wind and regret. He should have died on impact, but fate, or something else, had other plans. His body crashed through the canopy of an enormous, hidden tree, its ancient roots cushioning the blow just enough to leave him broken, but alive, lying in a bed of soft moss and glowing fungi. He drifted in and out of consciousness. In a hazy dream, a beautiful blonde elf girl with elegant, subtle ears appeared over him. She didn't speak, but her eyes held an ancient sorrow. She leaned down and pressed a gentle, luminous kiss to his forehead. A warmth, pure and revitalizing, flooded his shattered body. When Lupin finally awoke, the pain was gone. He was in a cavern of breathtaking beauty, lit by a soft, internal light. Giant, glowing roots formed the walls, and at the center stood a tree of impossible size, its trunk wider than a castle, its branches vanishing into the heavens above. Drops of water, he murmured, catching a few falling droplets on his tongue. Instinctively, he used his appraisal skill. World Tree Sap, S rank. The lifeblood of Yggdrasil, possesses ultimate restorative and mana-enhancing properties. So this is the World Tree, Lupin breathed, cutting through his despair. I guess luck really is on my side after all. He bowed his head, a genuine feeling of gratitude welling up inside him. Thank you. Thank you for bringing me back to life. You are welcome, child of another world. A soft, feminine voice echoed in his mind. He looked around, but saw no one. He must have been imagining it. His survival instincts kicked in. A place like this would be teeming with S-rank monsters. He had to move. He hadn't taken 2 steps when a gremlin lunged from the shadows. Its claws slashed, nicking his ear and severing a finger. Before he could even cry out, a massive, terrifying bear, radiating S-rank power, emerged from the foliage. It swiped a paw the size of a shield, its claws gouging deep across his face, taking his eye. Agony, blinding and absolute. He died instantly. And then, he awoke again. He was back at the base of the World Tree, his body whole, his eye and finger restored. The cycle of death and rebirth had begun. Standing over him, no longer a dream but solid and real, was the blonde elf girl. Her expression was serene, her eyes holding the wisdom of millennia. Welcome, she said, her voice like the chiming of crystal bells. I am the Dryad, guardian of this place. Your trial has just begun. Chapter 2 Let Me Be Reborn. As Lupin was shocked to see, a young woman with glasses shows proper gratitude and drink the tea. Are you sure you want me to drink the tea? However, the elf girl named Yuri wants it to give the tea to Lupin, which Lupin kindly rejected only to be however, the young woman named Ursula with glasses shoves it down his throat. Alright. Damn. Bitch damn. Man, why you have to do that? Thank you so much for the tea. Which Yuri couldn't help but blush. However, Ursula threatens him, which Levin says, yes, mom. I mean, ma'am, Levin said. However, Lupin had this unknown feeling. Until when he was blacked out. His body glitched until he looked up to see a kid with a ponytail. He could tell it was a male, but why was he standing in front of him? Remember who you really are. Remember that you are not the son of Lupin the First. But this time, he needed to be punched through his chest, shocking both Ursula and Yuri. Yuri. What the hell are you doing? Ursula said, if I'm willing to get stronger, then I need to be reborn, not just as Lupin the Third, some thief. My memories, everything. He remembered as a kid, but his mother was someone else, a Japanese woman. But that power he felt, he ripped it off till his body went limp, until the heart glowed. His body transformed, having clothes of Japanese-like and with a new face and a ponytail, a long ponytail. He was brand new than ever before. Ursula and Yuri couldn't help but be surprised, finally, until a new kind of heads-up display saying name, Lupin Lee Shogun. As the name says. Lupin Lee Shogun. Age, 25. Sex male. Race, human. And you could see the level. 25. There were also other things like gotcha system, which he looked down at the corpse and was able to grab the wallet and the gun as Walter, which Yuri was curious to see what exactly that thing was holding. He looked at the money he still had, meaning that this world does not accept it. As he put it into it, he was able to see that he's able to have some money around $1,000, which he decided to actually use the gotcha system. Soon, he got a ball and out came cards. Soon some of the cards formed into people, such as Ultramarines from Warhammer. We live to serve Emperor as they bowed. And another with the vehicle and weapons, such as the Techno Vanguard from Planetside Aftershock with some hover tanks and a mech known as the Pregus with plasma weaponry. We're willing to serve you, Commander. They said saluting, which Yuri and Ursula were completely shocked that he was able to summon something as well. However, he had a new sword with electricity energy as well. Ability Electro. Abilities locked. Electro Summoning. Electro Soldiers. Spirit Animal Tamer locked. Which kinda confused him. How the hell did you do that? Ursula said. For information, it's actually called the gotcha system. However, he realized that his eyeball was still different color. However, Ursula explains thanks to the tears. Crush eyeball, brand new. However, Yuri wants to see the rest of the world, which Ursula decide to agree, which Ruben kindly hug both Ursula and Yuri, which to Ursula's annoyance. However, Lupin could not see anything, Guppa. However, he was able to summon 3 of the Ultramarines with their shields. He was able to summon a flashlight, which he realized he had a phone with a flashlight on it, which he put it directly on his waist. But instead, however, now they turned off the phone and put it into storage. However, luckily, thanks to Ultramarines. However, using their powerful rifles, were able to kill the gremlin. However, they continuously brutally beating the absolute shit out of the gremlin even though it's dead. Hey, stop. Don't make me have to confiscate your weapons, he said sternly directly at the Ultramarines, which they all nodded. Sorry, Emperor, they all said in unison. Please don't make this a problem. As Lupin snapped his fingers for them to be summoned back into cards and put it directly in a storage area, which Ursula was rather surprised by the power these Ultramarines had, almost just like knights, but Lupin explained that he is from another world, which shocked Ursula with technological advancements. As Lupin decided not to rely too much on his summoning, so his side actually used the ability to actually however, he had flashbacks to someone else doing as well, a man that was also Korean, which he also decided not to become French-Japanese, but now Japanese-Korean, which is able to take ease with incredible speed. However, the eye that he crushed by the bear soon turned purple. Their terrible speed. He's able to slice through it every one of the Grimleys. Lupin was able to copy the gremlin skills with a massive headache. But before he would run off the dungeon floor, he realized that's something else. However, Lupin was able to cast mid-level magic such as electricity, wind, and fire. But before he could go, he was able to kill the bear using the sword. Ursula was only doing this that Yuri was asking him to. However, Ursula gave him the core of the spirit tree, put it into his eye. Yuri wanted to be helpful too. Ready to leave the dungeon. Chapter 3. Leaving the dungeon and the truth. However, Ursula decided to cut off Lupin's left eye, causing a scream in pain. Put down a stone, giving her a permanent link between her and Ein. Sees everything. So don't get the wrong idea of actually trying to be more perverted to Yuri, which Lupin sheesh. My god, man, I won't. So just get off my back already. But before they could leave, Lupin realized. Crap. My old body. As he grabbed it, he decided to put in a storage. Lupin was surprised for to actually have other sisters, which he decided to. Decide to actually meet the other world tree spirits. As Lupin was able to kill the S-rank Viper. However, he was able to copy the Serpent's ability poison. However, he knows it was more like a futuristic door. However, he could sense that there is a powerful boss. Let's do this. I'm no longer that weak man who's gonna run away, Lupin said with a determined look. Let's do this. As Lupin opens the door, he saw the dungeon core on the other side, but, however, he noticed that there wasn't any boss or anything to greet him, which was kind of off. Almost felt like that he was gonna walk into a trap as a massive golem. Lupin was able to activate the Venom skill, causing as Lupin was able to summon a massive ball of energy of lightning, destroying it as Yuri came on out to replenish Lupin's draining mana as Lupin was able to appraise the golem's ability. Ursula appeared next to Lupin to his complete shock, almost giving me a heart attack, but was able to appraise him. As they finally left the dungeon, however, Lupin realized that he had to stop. He sliced some trees while also making a coffin, bearing his corpse of deer who he once was with Ursula and Yuri. He dug it up alongside while also carving a cross saying, RP, rest in peace, the old me, while also tying a jacket, get next to a tree, as he prayed. However, he saw the soul of his old self. He could tell that he was just either seeing things, but at this point, now that he's more powerful than before, he touches the spirit as his soul was almost somewhat complete. Let's go. Back in town, Zoid was telling a fake story, trying to happen in a dungeon. They got eaten by hellhounds. However, a shadow. Oh, really? Is that so? A familiar voice said, and Zoid was confused. Who the hell are you? Zoid said, oh, please don't forget, buddy, me, Lupin. As he spit out his alcohol, surprised to see him alive, but brand new as new. However, he told everyone about the truth about Zoid and Jolene, however, after that, he was able to gain new abilities. Even though he ripped his heart out, he was reborn while also bearing his old body. However, everyone in the bar was enraged. However, the Lupin had gave him the middle finger inside it. Then he ever had a chance to move on. Chapter 3, A Merchant's Proposal. The forest had yielded no answers about Yuri's scattered siblings, leaving Lupin with a lingering frustration. A recent, cryptic vision had hinted at a future return to his own world, but for now, that door remained closed, a problem for another day. As he, Yuri, and Ursula continued their trek, a sharp scream sliced through the tranquil air. A call for help. Without a word, the trio moved as one, their pace quickening towards the source of the distress. They burst into a clearing to find a merchant's caravan under attack by a pack of anthropomorphic wolf creatures. Lupin moved with lethal efficiency. Lightning, a copied ability, crackled from his fingertips, arcing through the beasts and even felling a draconic horror that swooped from the canopy. As he fought, his appraisal magic word, passively absorbing the abilities of the fallen monsters. While Yuri and Ursula rushed to attend to the injured guards, Lupin's sharp eyes caught two figures huddled near an overturned cart, a young man and a girl with striking pink hair. Before he could speak, the girl darted forward and threw her arms around him in a desperate hug. "Hey now, easy there," Lupin said, gently prying her off. He turned to the young man. "Is this your sister?" The man offered a gracious, if slightly shaken, bow. "Not at all, good sir. My name is Jasper, a merchant by trade. May I present Princess Claudia, the third princess of the kingdom." A princess. Lupin's thief instincts twitched, a ghost of a memory from another life, a different princess, a different caper, flitting through his mind. They escorted the grateful princess back to the safety of her estate. "Oh, thank you so much, mister. I'm afraid I didn't get your name," Claudia said, her eyes shining with admiration. "Lupin Lee Shogun," he replied, tipping an imaginary hat. "But the real credit goes to my companions, Yuri and Ursula. They're the ones who healed your guards." As Claudia made to hug him again, Yuri smoothly stepped between them, her expression serene but firm. "Why did you stop me?" Claudia pouted. Yuri's smile was sweet, but her words carried a definitive edge. "I am Lupin's wife." Lupin blinked, momentarily taken aback. From the periphery of his vision, the spectral ghost of his past self gave an enthusiastic, thumbs-up approval. Claudia's face lit up with newfound resolve. "Oh, that's no issue at all. Then I shall be Lupin's second wife." Fuck. Lupin's internal scream was a silent, panicked wail. His past self's ghost grinned wider, offering a mental, "Goddamn, dude. Just calm down. You finally got yourself a girl. Make that two." "Oh, shut up, you." Lupin shot back internally. While Ursula watched with tearful joy at Yuri's rapid new friendship, Lupin felt the situation spiraling. His attempt to steer the conversation towards business was immediately hijacked. "I wish to marry you, Lupin," Jasper declared, his gaze intense. Internally, Lupin and his ghostly counterpart spoke in perfect, horrified unison, "Goddamn faggots. It's a bunch of gay-ass fuckers." Jasper, mistaking Lupin's stunned silence for consideration, eagerly led them to his secret merchant stash. He explained the nature of his left eye, which housed a powerful soul core. Lupin confirmed his understanding, and Jasper elaborated on the world's lore. The world tree stood as a seal against the demon king Matarin, and these soul cores were fragments of that ancient power. Lupin listened, storing every piece of information without comment. The mood, however, turned uncomfortably intimate again as Jasper leaned in. Before Lupin could react, Ursula physically pulled him aside. "You should really consider his proposal," she whispered, a threatening glint in her eyes. "What the hell is wrong with you people? I'm not gay. I'm straight." "Oh my god," Lupin hissed, exasperated. Ursula's stare intensified. "I think you should reconsider." Lupin looked down at the ground, defeated. "Why the fuck is my life like this? Fuck it. Fine." He turned back to Jasper, plastering on a merchant's smile. "Jasper, I actually do want to make a business proposal. As a merchant, you can get me anything for the right price, right, buddy?" He gave a forced thumbs up. Jasper beamed and embraced him in a tight hug. Lupin stood rigid, his internal monologue a scream of pure agony. God damn, I should kill myself immediately. Extracting himself, Lupin got down to business. Do you know about other soul cores out there? Indeed, Jasper nodded, now all professionalism. They are typically hidden in parallel, high mana loci, heavily guarded labyrinths or hidden dungeons. Great, so it's a global scavenger hunt, Lupin sighed, accepting a detailed map from Jasper. It marked the location of one such dungeon. The map led them to an ancient temple, its entrance a gaping maw of stone and overgrown vines. A sense of unease radiated from the structure, and Yuri shivered visibly. Lupin noticed her discomfort. We'll find one of your sisters in there. I'm sure of it, he assured her. Yuri managed a small, hopeful smile. The tunnel inside felt familiar, a sterile, constructed environment that reminded him of the dungeon from his vision. The moment he touched the wall, he knew, this was a pocket dimension, a testing ground. This is one of those secret dungeons. It won't be easy, there will be dangerous monsters. Some of it might be an illusion, a simulation to test us. A jubilant, echoing voice rang out. Welcome, welcome. Yuri's face brightened with recognition. That's Pinia, one of my sisters. A trickster, I take it. Lupin deduced. You could say that. She loves her pranks, Yuri confirmed. No kidding, Lupin thought, his thief's soul feeling a flicker of kinship. Reminds me of my goofier days. The memory of a less serious life was a sharp contrast to the man he was now. Through her own scrying, Pinia observed her older sister allied with a human. Her voice chimed through the dungeon again. I await you at the very heart of the dungeon. It seems we have an audience, Lupin said. Knowing they needed brute force, Lupin focused his will. With a snap of his fingers, he summoned a squad of hulking, power-armored ultramarines from the Warhammer universe. Their imposing forms and heavy weaponry made them perfect tanks for the challenges ahead. Pinia watched from her hidden observation room, a place that resembled a futuristic security center, both baffled and intrigued by this human who commanded such strange, powerful warriors. Lupin's senses screamed a warning. Trap, he stated flatly, his body already in motion. He evaded a volley of poisoned darts, a collapsing floor panel, and a swinging spiked log with the effortless grace of the world's greatest thief. His appraisal magic, trickster's eye, laid bare every mechanism, every hidden pressure plate. It was second nature, a skill that still annoyed him with its sheer utility. Pinia's frustrated tantrum echoed through the corridors, giving Lupin a migraine. In response, she summoned her champion, a monstrous, S-ranked plant creature with a female torso and writhing, thorn tentacles. Ursula identified it quickly. An LS-rank Floratros. It produces paralytic spores. As the creature released a cloud of sleeping gas, Lupin simply adjusted the filtration mask he already wore. Always prepared, he said coolly, tapping a small notebook. I've been cataloging monster strengths and weaknesses. Pinia watched in stunned silence as he effortlessly neutralized her champion. He snapped his fingers again. An ultramarine's bolter roared, reducing the plant monster to pulp. Then, Lupin's eyes glowed with an intense, dangerous purple as he stared directly into the hidden camera, his gaze seeming to pierce through the walls and into Pinia's very soul. For the first time, she felt a jolt of genuine fear. Who? No, what is he? She threw everything she had at him, swarms of giant ants, a minotaur, a centaur. Lupin met each wave with unshakable calm. His summoned ultramarines provided covering fire with heavy artillery, while his own Cardinia blade flashed, cutting down any who got too close. After the last monster fell, he gave his summoned warriors a thumbs up. In a moment of surreal camaraderie, one of the ultramarines gave a stiff, powered gauntlet thumbs up in return. Elsewhere in the forest, Zoid's luck had not improved. Consumed by rage and humiliation, he blamed Lupin for his complete social downfall. Cast out from his party and shunned at the tavern, even by the apathetic Jolene, he was a man with nothing left to lose. He sought power in a hidden dungeon, only to face repeated, humiliating failures. As a monstrous crocodile bore down on him, ready to deliver the killing blow, a familiar blur intercepted it. The beast fell, neatly bisected. Zoid looked up, his face a twisted mask of hate and jealousy, to see Lupin standing over him. Before Zoid could spit a curse, Lupin moved faster than thought, delivering a precise chop to the back of his neck. Zoid's eyes rolled back, and he collapsed to the forest floor, unconscious and defeated once more. Chapter 4, The Illusion Boss and Guild Scorn. Lupin carved a path through the dungeon, his growing arsenal of copied S-rank abilities leaving a trail of fallen monsters in his wake. Each victory brought him closer to his goal, slaying the dungeon's boss, securing the soul core, and strengthening the seal on the world tree. A palpable, immense power suddenly weighed down the air. The very ground trembled. Lupin, I sense the enemy is the ground itself. Ursula's voice echoed urgently in his mind. On cue, the floor erupted. A colossal, mountain-sized turtle, its shell-like forged granite, emerged with an earth-shattering roar. Damn, this one's a big one, Lupin muttered, already moving. The behemoth opened its maw, not to bite, but to unleash a volley of concentrated fireballs. Lupin's eyes widened in genuine surprise, a fire-breathing turtle. He reacted instantly, using a deflection ability to send a retaliatory water ball slamming back into the creature's face. But the hit felt wrong. There was no impact, no roar of pain. The giant tortoise shimmered and vanished like mist. It was an illusion, Lupin realized, his appraisal magic now seeing through the deceit. He reached down into the space where the beast had been and scooped up the real culprit. A small, trembling, and utterly harmless turtle with luminous, innocent eyes. So all that time, I was attacking a mirror, a projection, he mused, holding the tiny creature gently. Give credit where it's due. I guess fool me once, shame on me. Pinia's voice, now petulant, rang through the chamber. Now kill it. Finish the trial. Lupin looked at the cute, blinking turtle in his hand. A wave of protectiveness washed over him. Oh, come on. I couldn't kill something so adorable, he said, his voice softening. The trial is over. I relent. The labyrinth seemed to sigh in acceptance. The walls dissolved, revealing the true heart of the dungeon where Pinia waited. The trickster sister and Yuri rushed into a warm embrace. And you are the human who ruined all my fun, Pinia said, turning a mock glare onto Lupin. Trust me, you're the one who tried to turn me into a pincushion, Lupin retorted with a dry smile. But thanks to my reawakening, my appraisal skills are a bit stronger than your illusions. Pinia huffed but then smiled, admitting she wanted to join their group. At that moment, the small turtle in Lupin's hand began to glow, transforming into a graceful, ethereal woman named Karahimi. Little Ursula, Karahimi greeted warmly before turning to Lupin. She presented him with a glowing philosopher's stone. For proving your strength and your mercy. She pressed the stone to his chest, and Pinia's spirit core merged with it, flooding Lupin's body with a new, profound power. Meanwhile, festering in his humiliation, Zoid could only watch from the shadows as Lupin's group was celebrated. Their next stop was a bustling trade marketplace, where they met Jasper. The sight of the renowned merchant with the F rank, Lupin caused an immediate stir among the other adventurers. You have got to be kidding me. That loser. One adventurer sneered. Jasper's chosen him. What is he thinking? Spat another. Seriously, why couldn't he pick a proper A rank, like us? A third added, puffing out his chest. Lupin felt a familiar anger simmering, but he channeled it. He approached the Adventurers Guild counter and, under the scornful gaze of the crowd, began emptying his item box. A mountain of rare emerald and other materials from the Immortal King's hoard piled high on the counter. Whispers of thief and cheater rippled through the crowd. But the female receptionist, a woman named Megan, examined the goods with a trained eye, her expression shifting from skepticism to outright shock. This is all genuine Vincent tier material, she announced, her voice silencing the hall. Jasper stepped forward, beaming with pride. He acquired it all from a secret dungeon I guided him to. The crowd was stunned into silence. Not finished, Lupin decided to drive the point home. With a snap of his fingers, he summoned his ultramarines. The giant, power-armored warriors materialized in a flash of light, their presence dominating the room. I've undergone a reawakening, Lupin stated calmly to the gaping crowd. Summoning is but one of my new abilities. He enjoyed the sight of his detractors' jaws on the floor as his ultramarine honor escort led him away. Later, seeking respite, Lupin sank into the steamy waters of a men's hot spring. For a glorious moment, there was peace. It was shattered when Yuri slipped into the water beside him. Whoa, what are you doing here? This is men's only, Lupin yelped, scrambling back. Can't a man have 5 minutes to relax without more stress? Peenia popped into existence on the edge of the spring, giggling. Oh, what's the matter? Don't you like having females around? Will you all just shut up and give me some privacy? The situation escalated further when Ursula arrived, a fireball flickering in her hand, demanding to know what was happening. Lupin decided a tactical retreat was the only sane option. Later, as the group settled, the topic turned to the remaining sisters. Ursula explained that the eldest, Echidna, the guardian sister, was lost, her location among the World Tree's dungeons completely unknown. I'm not going to abandon your sisters, Lupin assured Yuri, his voice firm. I promised to reunite your family, and I will. The next day, Lupin met with Jasper and was surprised to be summoned by Guild Master Megan herself. We have a problem, she stated, getting straight to the point. The behemoth, an ancient dragon, has been attacking merchant caravans. We need it dealt with. Sounds like a big problem, Lupin acknowledged. Thanks to my summoning ability, he began. Megan cut him off, her eyes sharp. So the rumors are true. You have a summoning ability. It's a reawakening power, something I gained, before, Lupin said, being deliberately vague. How very interesting, Megan mused. Are you willing to accept the job? I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Upon accepting the quest and a hefty advance of gold, which he seamlessly stored in his system's inventory, Lupin got to work. He accessed his gotcha system, spending a portion of his earnings. A series of flashes of light later, and his army had grown exponentially. Standing before him were new allies, a lightning samurai crackling with energy, a four-armed, starry-eyed warlock named Cosmic, a sleek mechanical automaton called Gearhead, and a shadowy figure in a cloak wielding twin revolvers known only as Reaper. Behind them, ranks of null sector automatons unfolded, three-legged cannon units and aerial drones, a full mechanical battalion ready for war. Lupin smiled. The behemoth wouldn't know what hit it. Chapter 5, Family Matters. The desert sun beat down mercilessly as Lupin trekked across the dunes. According to Ursula's guidance, the behemoth was near. Be warned, Ursula's voice echoed in his mind. This earth dragon does not just use magic, it projects a space that steals the magic of others. You will have to rely on your physical skills and your otherworldly weaponry. So, no electro powers. Got it, Lupin muttered. Time for a more direct approach. A massive tremor shook the desert as the behemoth erupted from the sand. It was a monstrous dragon of stone and scale, its eyes glowing with malevolent energy. You dare look down upon me, human. Its voice boomed, shaking the very air. It unleashed a spiral of distorted magic, but Lupin was already moving. A hoverboard materialized beneath his feet from the gotcha system, and he shot skyward, dodging the attack. He brandished a massive firearm taken from one of his ultramarine summons, firing explosive rounds into the creature's hide. With a burst of speed, he drew a crackling energy katana and sliced clean through one of the dragon's massive forelimbs. The behemoth roared in pain and fury, diving underground before surging up directly beneath Lupin, its cavernous maw swallowing him whole. Darkness. Then, a purple glow lit up the beast's gullet from within. All muscle, no brain. Lupin's voice echoed from inside the creature. 1,000 precise cuts of lightning erupted outwards. The behemoth shuddered violently before exploding into chunks of stone and flesh from the inside out. As the dust settled, Lupin stood panting amidst the wreckage, his clothes smoldering. One of the dragon's remaining eyes rolled towards him, its glow fading. A final, rasping thought reached him. You are not human. You are something beyond. Lupin simply stared back, his own purple eye glowing with a power he was still learning to understand. I'm just full of surprises. Yuri, Kurihima, and Peenia arrived moments later, their faces etched with worry that melted into relief. We felt its power fade. Are you hurt? Yuri asked. Lupin gave a tired but confident smile. I had it handled. But your support, it means everything. The next day, they stood in the grand throne room of the kingdom. King Alistair, a man whose very presence radiated authority, looked down upon them. Claudia beamed at his side. As Lupin bowed, a strange sensation shot through him. His right eye, the one housing the soul core, flared with a sudden, painful intensity, a deep purple light edged with black. For a split second, he saw a similar, immense power swirling within the king. He blinked, and the vision was gone, leaving only a throbbing behind his eye. "Rise, Lupin Lee Shogun," the king's voice boomed, though his eyes held a calculating glint. "My daughter speaks highly of you. To single-handedly slay the behemoth is a feat of legendary proportion. You are handsome, skilled, and powerful." "Thank you, your majesty," Lupin said, his guard up. "So much so," the king continued, "that Claudia has formally requested you become her royal consort, her second husband, alongside your elven wife." Claudia smiled hopefully, while Yuri stepped forward and bowed gracefully. It would be an honor to have such a figure as a father-in-law. Lupin's mind raced. This was moving too fast. But before he could form a polite refusal, the king waved a hand. "The matter is settled. You shall be granted a parcel of land and a title. We shall celebrate this union." As they were dismissed, Lupin felt a deep unease. In the city streets, news of his deed and his new status spread like wildfire, fueling a mixture of admiration and envy. Unseen by the celebrating crowds, Zoid watched from a shadowy alley, his face a mask of pure hatred. His brooding was interrupted by a smooth, silken voice. "Such jealousy is a potent fuel, isn't it?" A dark elf with hair as white as bone stepped from the shadows. "My name is Midna. Perhaps we can help each other." Back at the mansion, exhaustion finally overcame Lupin. He fell into a fitful sleep, his mind tormented by visions. In his dream, he stood in a void. His ghostly past self was there, but so was another figure, a woman of severe beauty and immense power, clad in armor he instinctively recognized. His mother, Raiden Shogun. "My baby boy, it has been a while," she said, her voice echoing with regret. Rage, old and deep, boiled to the surface. "Shut up, you whore!" Lupin screamed, the pain of a lifetime of abandonment raw in his voice. "Why did you leave us? Why abandon me and my brother?" "I was trying to protect you," she began. "Protect me from what?" he yelled, cutting her off. "You left me to struggle, to steal, to survive alone. You have no idea what that was like." Raiden's expression was pained but firm. "There was a threat, a danger not even I could face head-on. A threat known as the Monarchs. And you, my son, you are one of them." The words hit him like a physical blow. Monarch. The same word the voice in his head had whispered. Electro-Monarch. He jolted awake, gasping, his sheath soaked with sweat. Ursula was sitting in a chair nearby, watching him silently. "Yuri. Pina," he rasped. "They went to the town market," Ursula replied calmly. She tilted her head. "You were crying." Lupin turned away, wiping his face. "It's nothing. Just a bad dream." But the feeling of dread remained. The confession from his dream mother echoed in his mind. He had a terrible feeling that the greatest threat wasn't a dragon or a dungeon, but the power awakening inside him and the legacy he never knew he carried. He had other things to take care of, but now, he also had a terrifying family mystery to unravel. Chapter 6, Lupin vs. Zoid. The commotion started in the merchant district. Screams, the sound of crumbling stone, and a roar that was more than bestial. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated rage. Yuri and Pina, browsing a market stall, spun around to see panicked citizens fleeing. A monstrous figure, a hulking mass of muscle and twisted flesh with a grotesque third eye pulsating on its forehead, was on a rampage. It was tossing carts and punching craters into the cobblestone streets. Pina reacted first, throwing up a shimmering barrier of light to protect a group of fleeing civilians. The monster slammed into it, and the barrier cracked under the impact. The creature's power was immense, fueled by something dark. The monster then turned its attention to a familiar figure trying to hide behind an overturned wagon, Jolene. "Zoid, please," Jolene begged, recognizing some horrible remnant of the man she once knew. "It wasn't my fault. Spare me." The name hung in the air. The monster that was once Zoid let out a guttural laugh, the sound distorted and cruel. Any humanity left in him was gone, burned away by jealousy and the corrupting power he had embraced. He didn't utter a word, simply swatting her aside with a force that ended her pleas forever. It was in that moment that Lupin arrived. He took in the scene, the destruction, the fear, and the lifeless form of Jolene. A cold fury settled over him. "Hey, ugly!" Lupin shouted, drawing the monster's attention. With a surge of electro-magic enhancing his speed, he closed the distance in a blur and delivered a devastating right hook to the creature's jaw. The impact sent Zoid flying backward, crashing through the wall of a nearby building. The monster emerged from the rubble, shaking off dust and debris. Well, it snarled, its voice a horrifying echo of Zoid's. If it isn't the F-rank loser. Come to save the day. Lupin's blood ran cold. The voice was distorted, but unmistakable. He activated his appraisal skill, but the reading glitched and scrambled, overwhelmed by the chaotic energy. What the hell? Who are you? How hurtful, the monster mocked, taking a menacing step forward. Have you forgotten your old friend? The one who carried you through dungeons. The pieces clicked into place, the arrogance, the bitterness. Lupin's face paled. Zoid, is that really you? The question was a whisper of disbelief and horror. What do you think? Zoid spread his mutated arms. Do you like the new look? No more being second best to anyone. What have you done to yourself? Lupin demanded, his voice tight with a mixture of pity and anger. I've become what I needed to be to finally put you in your place, you weakling. Zoid roared. He unleashed a blast of dark energy that vaporized the front of a nearby tavern. Lupin leapt onto a rooftop, trying to draw the fight away from the civilians. Zoid followed with a powerful jump, landing heavily in front of him. What's the matter? Can't bring yourself to fight back? Zoid taunted. After everything I did to you. You're still just a coward. Lupin stood frozen, the taunts hitting their mark. A ghostly image of his past self appeared beside him, echoing the doubt. He's right, you know. You never deserved any of this. Maybe you should just run. Lupin stammered, conflicted. Suddenly, Yuri floated up onto the roof, placing herself between Lupin and the monster. Stop this, she commanded, her voice ringing with authority. Lupin has a kind heart. He is goofy and brave, and he always tries to do what is right. That is why I love him. Your hatred has blinded you to what truly matters. Zoid, enraged by her words, swung a massive claw at her. Out of my way. The attack never landed. Seeing Yuri in danger shattered Lupin's hesitation. The cracks of doubt in his heart sealed instantly, replaced by a protective fury. Don't you touch her, Lupin roared. His body flared with electro-energy. He caught Zoid's arm, the electricity causing the monster to convulse. In one fluid motion, he executed a powerful suplex, slamming Zoid onto the rooftop with enough force to shatter tiles. Before Zoid could recover, Lupin's energy katana was in his hand, crackling with power. This ends now. He moved with blinding speed. A precise slash severed the mutated right arm. A second, more careful strike targeted the pulsating third eye on Zoid's forehead. There was a shriek of pain and a flash of dark light as the corrupting influence was severed. The monster's form began to shrink and contort, the extra limbs and bulk receding until all that was left was the broken, unconscious body of Zoid, lying amidst the wreckage. Sometime later, the city guards swarmed the area, arresting the barely conscious Zoid for property damage, endangerment, and murder. As they dragged him away, Lupin kept his distance. Zoid's eyes fluttered open for a moment, meeting Lupin's gaze. There was no gratitude, only a hollow, defeated shame. Lupin felt no victory, only a profound sadness. In the shadows of a clock tower, the dark elf, Midna, watched the entire exchange. A frown of annoyance marred her pale features. Zoid had been a useful, rage-filled pawn, but he had failed spectacularly. So much for that investment, she murmured to herself. This Lupin is more resilient than I anticipated. A direct confrontation is inefficient. A sly smile touched her lips. Very well. If brute force won't work, we shall try a more subtle strategy. Every man has a weakness. I just need to find his. She melted back into the darkness, already plotting her next move. Chapter 7. Love and Drama. The aftermath of the battle with Zoid left Lupin drained. The intense use of his electro-magic had sapped his mana, and the emotional toll was just as heavy. Seeking security, he summoned a contingent of his ultramarines, who now stood as silent, imposing sentinels around the mansion's perimeter. Seeking a moment of peace, Lupin sat in the garden, a warm cup of tea in his hands that Yuri had prepared. The steam rose in the cool night air, a small comfort. Lupin, Yuri began, her voice soft and unusually hesitant. A faint blush colored her cheeks. I wanted to ask you something. Lupin raised a curious eyebrow, setting his cup down. Okay. Go ahead. She took a deep breath. Well, I was wondering, if you might want to, be with me. To marry me, perhaps. Lupin choked slightly, barely managing to swallow his tea instead of spitting it out. Whoa, where did that come from? He asked, his own face growing warm. Pina, who had been listening from a nearby archway, floated over with a mischievous grin. Oh, come now, I'm not surprised. A handsome man like you must have women falling for him left and right. Perhaps you'd prefer a more playful companion, she added, flirting openly. Ursula materialized beside them, saying nothing, but her stern gaze locked onto Lupin was more intimidating than any words. The message was clear: choose your next actions very carefully. Lupin felt a familiar, roguish impulse rise within him, the ghost of the world's greatest pervert who would have seized such an opportunity without a second thought. But he was trying to be better than that man. He wanted to be a gentleman, someone worthy of the trust these powerful beings placed in him. He looked at Yuri, seeing the genuine affection and hope in her eyes. He stood up and approached her. Instead of a passionate kiss, he gently took her hand and pressed a soft, respectful kiss to her forehead. Yuri, he said, his voice gentle but serious. You are incredible. But a decision like that, it shouldn't be made in the heat of the moment. Let's give it time. Let's make sure it's right. The gesture was so unexpectedly chivalrous that Yuri's blush deepened, but she smiled, nodding in understanding. Pina looked impressed, and even Ursula's stern expression softened a fraction. It was the right choice. Far away, in a fortress carved from obsidian and shadow, a different kind of power stirred. On a throne of jagged rock sat a figure in ornate, demonic armor, a fearsome samurai mask hiding his face. Red eyes glowed from within the helmet. This was Tengu Shredder, a warlord reborn in a new world after his defeat in another. Those accursed turtles thought they had ended me, he mused, his voice a low grating sound. But my will is eternal. This world will be my empire. The great doors to his chamber creaked open, and the dark elf, Midna, entered and bowed. Report, Shredder commanded. My lord, you felt the surge of power earlier, Midna said. It was not one of your ancient rivals. It was a human. His name is Lupin Lee Shogun. Lupin Lee Shogun, Shredder repeated, tasting the name. An interesting name. Where can he be found? His exact location is shielded, my lord. I suggest we send the Lieutenant Falcon to assess this threat. Shredder leaned forward, the red glow of his eyes intensifying. Caution, Midna. Underestimation is the seed of defeat. We observe first. But very well. Send Falcon. Let him test this human's mettle. Back at the mansion, deep in the night, Lupin was jerked from his sleep. A foul, demonic energy prickled at his senses. God damn it, he groaned, sitting up. Who the hell is it now? It's 3 a.m. He stumbled out of bed and walked onto the balcony. Silhouetted against the moon was a humanoid figure with the distinct features of a bird of prey, a falcon. Its eyes glowed with malevolent intent. I am Falcon, it hissed. And you have been marked. In a blur of motion, the demon launched itself at Lupin. Oh, for the love of. Lupin ducked on instinct, the attack shattering the balcony railing where he'd been standing. Look, bird brain, you caught me on a bad night. Why don't you fly back to your master and tell him I'm not interested? How dare you mock me? Falcon shrieked, preparing another strike. But Lupin was faster. Fueled by annoyance and lingering power, he sidestepped and delivered a single, lightning-infused punch to the demon's chest. There was a crackle of energy and a sickening thud as Falcon was sent flying off the balcony, crashing unconscious into the trees below. Almost instantly, the summoned Ultramarines converged, their bolters aimed at the downed foe. The commotion brought Yuri, Pina, and Ursula rushing to his room. What happened? Who was that? Yuri asked, alarmed. Lupin looked down at his still smoking fist, then at the unconscious demon. I have no idea. He said his name was Falcon. I guess one punched him. He felt a strange mix of satisfaction and concern. Ursula examined the scene. A demon lieutenant. This is a deliberate provocation. She turned to Lupin. We will get answers at first light. For now, everyone should rest. The real trouble has just begun. As they returned to their rooms, Lupin stared into the dark forest. A samurai masked demon lord and his lieutenants. His new life was becoming more complicated by the minute. Chapter 8, The Forsaken Library. The morning after the Falcon Demon's defeat, Lupin found himself standing before the imposing doors of the castle's forbidden library. Guided by Princess Claudia's suggestion that it held the secrets of hidden dungeons, he had come to seek answers. The special watch granted to him by the king had been his key to gaining entry. He had no objections to the plan. He needed to learn everything he could about the secret dungeons, especially given the mysterious keys in his possession. Claudia had been intrigued but uncertain about their purpose, suggesting that no key had ever been linked to a sacred dungeon before. Well, Lupin thought, who knows? These might be more valuable than anyone realizes. As Lupin stepped across the threshold, a faint shimmer in the air behind him solidified into an invisible barrier. Yuri, attempting to follow, was repelled by the force. A moment later, Ursula teleported to the entrance, only to be similarly blocked. It was clear, an ancient ward barred all spiritual beings from entering, leaving Lupin to venture in alone. The interior of the library was breathtaking, a cavernous space that stretched beyond sight, filled with towers of books that scraped the distant, star-painted ceiling. The sheer scale was overwhelming. "Ah, damn it," Lupin muttered, scratching the back of his head in annoyance. "Maybe I should have been more specific. This is going to be a nightmare." Just then, a sharp instinct, honed by the system and his appraisal skill, made him look up. A girl tumbled from a high balcony, a cascade of purple hair and a flurry of scattered books. Lupin moved in a blur, catching her effortlessly before she hit the ground. She was light, with distinctly short, delicate elf ears and wide, flustered eyes. Thank you," she stammered. "You should be more careful," Lupin chided gently. "Always look before you leap. Seriously. Thankfully, I was here to catch you." He realized his manners had slipped. "Right, introductions. I'm Lupin Lee Shogun, and you are." The girl, now back on her feet, waved a hand. The fallen books levitated and slotted themselves perfectly back onto their shelves. She then turned her curious gaze back to Lupin. "My name is Alice," she said softly. "And I know the location of every book in this place." "That's perfect," Lupin replied, relieved. "Maybe you can help me, then. I'm looking for information on hidden dungeons, if it's not too much trouble." "Hidden dungeons," Alice repeated. She closed her eyes for a moment, then pointed. A single, thick tome bound in dark leather flew from a shelf several stories up and landed gently in Lupin's waiting hands. Lupin stared, stunned. "How in the—" "It is because I am also a spirit of the world tree," Alice explained, cutting off his question. Lupin's surprise multiplied tenfold. Before he could process this, Alice added, "And I can sense Yuri's spirit core within you." His astonishment grew 100 times. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of another figure, a stern-looking girl with vibrant red hair, dressed in a sharp, Japanese-style kimono. She moved with a guardian's purpose. "AKA," the girl said, her voice firm. "We are not expecting guests." "Wow, pleasant," Lupin remarked, stepping slightly in front of Alice. "I'm Lupin. You don't have to be so harsh. The rest of your sisters are waiting outside, you know." AKA's expression remained rigid. "They cannot enter. This is the Forsaken Library. Its wards allow no one but the appointed guardian and a select few." "Then how about we go out to them?" Lupin suggested logically. "That seems like the easiest way for a reunion." "The only way for Alice to leave," Akka stated, her gaze unwavering, "is to clear the hidden dungeon that is tethered to this very library." As she spoke, a warmth bloomed in Lupin's pocket. He reached in and pulled out one of his dungeon keys. It was glowing with a soft, green light, its intricate carvings seeming to shift, depicting a dense, verdant jungle. "I'm guessing," Lupin said, a confident smirk spreading across his face as he held up the glowing key, "that this is what I need to find it." Akka and Alice stared at the key, their eyes wide. Alice, in particular, looked apprehensive, a flicker of fear crossing her features at the thought of the unknown world beyond her sanctuary. Seeing her fear, Lupin's expression softened. He knelt down slightly to meet her eyes. "You know, I was just like you once. I was a nobody. Literally, from another world entirely. I was a thief who thought he was alone. But I discovered I was more. I found people who accepted me for who I am. Like Yuri and her sisters, and their guardians." He extended a hand to her, his voice earnest. "And I accept you. You remind me of myself. You don't have to be afraid." Alice looked from Lupin's reassuring face to his offered hand, a blush touching her cheeks. His words had disarmed her fear, replacing it with a budding sense of courage. With the key glowing brightly, Lupin turned, ready to find the entrance to the unknown dungeon that awaited them. Chapter 9, The Jungle's Secret. Guided by the soft glow of the jungle key, Lupin ascended a winding staircase hidden deep within the forsaken library. It led to a secluded archway where, just as he suspected, a lock pulsed with a matching green light. This was it. Taking a steadying breath, he inserted the key. With a resonant click, the archway shimmered, and the solid stone dissolved into a portal of swirling emerald energy. Stepping through, Lupin, Akka, and Alice found themselves in a dense, humid jungle. But it was unlike any jungle Lupin had ever seen. The trees, the rocks, even the soil beneath their feet were composed of distinct, blocky pixels, a surreal landscape ripped straight from a classic video game. "Whoa," Lupin muttered, a sense of bizarre nostalgia washing over him. The familiarity was short-lived. Rustling from the blocky undergrowth announced their welcome party, plant-like creatures with snapping, piranha-like heads. His appraisal skill flared to life, identifying them as treetop whispers. They lashed out with thorny vines, but Lupin's sword was a blur, cutting through the attacks with practiced ease. As they ventured deeper, they encountered new foes, skeletons clad in thick, green moss, their arrows dripping with a venomous purple substance. Lupin moved with heightened caution, his speed a testament to his training, dismantling the undead archers before they could land a single shot. Next came hulking, blocky jungle zombies, their movements slow but powerful. Relying on his appraisal to predict their lumbering strikes, Lupin evaded them effortlessly. "This is bizarre," he commented, glancing back at his companions. "But I can work with it." AKA watched, impressed by his efficiency, while Alice looked on in sheer astonishment. Pushing forward, a translucent quest log materialized in Lupin's vision, outlining the dungeon's objectives. Defeat jungle creatures, 100%. Slay the jungle abomination, 100%. Free the trapped elephants, 0%. The elephants. Lupin wondered aloud, his curiosity piqued. His path was blocked once more, this time by hulking behemoths of leaves and thorns, leafs. One of the creatures lunged, its mass threatening to crush him. In a flash of light, the ultramarine Titus materialized, his power armor taking the brunt of the impact with a deafening clang. "Tough," Lupin grunted, joining the fray. "But I'm tougher." Together, they made short work of the plant monsters. Finally, they reached a clearing that reeked of decay. Vines snaked from the trees, coiling together into a monstrous form, a jungle abomination. It roared, purple necrotic energy crackling around it. The air grew heavy with its killer intent, but Lupin stood firm. He never backed down. Channeling his energy, he met the creature head-on in a chaotic clash of steel and magic, until with a final, decisive strike, the abomination disintegrated into pixels with a piercing shriek. "Level up. One objective down," Lupin said, wiping his brow. He turned his attention to the remaining task just as Alice gently tugged on his sleeve. "Lupin," she whispered, pointing through the foliage. "I think I found what you're looking for." She led them to a crumbling, vine-choked temple. Inside, Lupin summoned a small flame to illuminate the darkness, revealing ancient murals and a rumbling sound that echoed from deep within. His eyes scanned the chamber, his appraisal skill activating once more. He could sense life, large life. "There are 3 of them," he announced. 2 are African bush elephants, and 1 is an African forest elephant. Alice tilted her head, perplexed. "I do not understand the difference." "It's common where I'm from," Lupin explained with a smile. "Different species." "How interesting," Alice replied, though she still looked confused. A complex puzzle lock sealed a massive stone door. Lupin's mind, sharpened by years as a master thief, worked instinctively. He manipulated the ancient mechanism with precise movements until, with a satisfying grind, the door slid open. Inside, 3 magnificent female elephants were trapped by glowing energy fields. As the fields dissipated, the elephants bowed their heads in gratitude. A new prompt appeared, suggesting titles for his new companions. Seeing their powerful, tank-like builds, Lupin knew what to call them. "You," he said to the first bush elephant. "Your name is Eleanor." He turned to the second. "And you are Love." The elephants nodded in approval, their intelligent eyes warm. With the dungeon cleared, AKA presented Lupin with a strange, glowing stone, the dungeon's core. They exited the portal and returned to Lupin's mansion. The reunion was chaotic. Yuri cried out in joy upon seeing Alice, though the spirit sisters' relationship remained bittersweet. Then, all eyes fell on the three pachyderms now standing in the courtyard. Pina, ever the provocateur, dared to tease the largest, Eleanor. With a disdainful snort, Eleanor placed a heavy front foot gently but firmly on Pina's back, then smacked her playfully on the head with her trunk. Lupin couldn't help but laugh. "That's what you get for messing with them, Pina." Yuri stared in awe. "I've never seen such an animal before." For a moment, it was a perfectly wholesome scene. But the peace was fragile. As the initial excitement died down, the air grew thick with unspoken tension. One by one, the girls turned their gazes to Lupin, their eyes filled with affection and longing. Lupin felt a familiar dread creep into his stomach. The love confessions were about to start again. He smiled weakly, realizing that the real battle was just beginning, and it was far more dangerous than any jungle abomination. Things were about to hit the fan, very hard. Chapter 10 Going to a New Kingdom. The journey to the next kingdom was a somber one. Lupin used his new elephant companions, Eleanor, Love, and Matriarch, as living transports for those too weak to walk, their massive, gentle forms a stark contrast to the despair they witnessed. They arrived at a village gripped by a palpable fear, its people living under a shadow. In the central square, a heart-wrenching scene unfolded. A man, his face etched with a grief too deep for tears, held his young daughter's shoulders. "It'll be all right, my light," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Your sacrifice will keep the village safe. Be brave." The little girl, trembling but trying to be strong for her father, nodded. She took a hesitant step towards the tree line, where a monstrous presence waited. From the forest emerged the source of their terror, a hydra. Its scales were the color of swamp rot, and 5 serpentine heads weaved through the air, each maw dripping venom that sizzled on the ground. This was no mindless beast, its eyes gleamed with cruel intelligence. "We have brought the offering," the village elder called out, his voice trembling. "In exchange, our village stays safe." One of the hydra's heads lunged forward, not to accept the offering, but to punish their insolence. It spat a torrent of vile, green venom directly at the crowd. Villagers screamed and scrambled back. "Barrier!" a voice shouted. Lupin appeared in a blur of motion, a shimmering wall of blue energy erupting from his outstretched hand. The venom splashed harmlessly against it, but the acrid smell filled the air. "Be careful, Lupin," Ursula's voice echoed urgently in his mind. "That's an SS rank monster. Do not underestimate it." "I know. I can handle it. Yuri, the poison," Lupin commanded without looking back. Yuri, already moving, raised her hands. A soft, cleansing light spread from her, washing over the coughing villagers and neutralizing the toxin in their systems. The Hydra, enraged by the interference, focused all 5 heads on the little girl, who stood frozen in terror. But before it could strike, the ground shook. 3 ultramarines teleported in, their massive storm shields forming an impenetrable wall between the monster and the child. The girl looked up at Lupin, her eyes wide with awe and shock. He gave her a quick, reassuring wink before turning his full attention to the beast. "You picked the wrong village to bully," Lupin growled. His katanas flashed, a whirlwind of steel and crackling energy. He moved faster than the Hydra's heads could track, severing one, then another. But as legend foretold, 2 more grew back in their place. Regeneration. "Annoying," he muttered. With a thought, he sheathed his blades and thrust his palms forward. "Let's see you grow back from ash." Ignis Tempestus. A torrent of magical fire erupted, engulfing the Hydra. It shrieked, a sound of pure agony, as the flames cauterized the stumps of its necks, preventing regrowth. Lupin didn't let up, burning the entire monstrous corpse until nothing but a charred husk remained. Silence fell over the square. Then, a slow clap began. The villagers, once fearful, now looked at him with newfound hope. "It's the hero. The one who slew the ancient dragon," someone cried. The father rushed forward and swept his daughter into a crushing hug, tears of relief streaming down his face. The villagers began to crowd around Lupin, offering their thanks. As the praises washed over him, Lupin asked the question that had been on his mind. "This Hydra, it was terrorizing you. Who is the lord of this region? I need to speak with him." The crowd's jubilant mood vanished instantly. The father who had just been saved looked at Lupin, his expression now grim. Thank you for saving my daughter, for saving us from the Hydra. But, it would have been better if you had let it be. The villagers turned away, their faces shadowed with a fear greater than any monster could inspire. They dispersed, leaving Lupin confused and concerned. Their gratitude was genuine, but it was buried under a deeper, more profound dread. Something is very wrong here, Lupin said to Yuri. Determined to get answers, he went directly to the source, the Lord's grand mansion, which stood in opulent contrast to the village's poverty. He marched through the ornate doors without announcement. Hello? Anyone home? His voice echoed in the lavish hall. The lord of the region, a man named Nigan, emerged. He was not the imposing tyrant Lupin expected, but a foppish, clumsy man who nearly tripped over his own rug. Oh, a guest. Welcome, welcome. Tea. Over a painfully bland dessert and weak tea, Lupin explained his purpose. I'm here about the demon and monster activity reported in this region. Monsters. Demons. Nigan waved a dismissive hand, a nervous tick in his eye. Oh, no, no. Must be exaggerated reports from frightened peasants. Too many monsters in the woods, you see. Imagination runs wild. Lupin took a sip of the terrible tea. I see. Well, just to be safe, I took care of the Hydra in the forest. The teacup slipped from Nigan's fingers and shattered on the floor. His clumsy demeanor evaporated, replaced by sheer, unadulterated panic. You did what? You fool. You imbecile. He shrieked, his face turning purple. The Hydra was the only thing keeping the even worse monsters of the deep forest from attacking us. We had a deal. One sacrifice a month for safety. You've doomed us all. A deal. Lupin's voice was cold. You made a deal to sacrifice your own people. It was no big deal. One worthless life for the safety of the entire territory. A necessary transaction. Nigan raved, pacing frantically. You'll just kill a few monsters and leave, but my people will suffer for generations because of your heroism. He stormed out of the room, leaving Lupin in stunned silence. Lupin left the mansion, the Lord's words ringing in his ears. He looked around the village with new eyes. The walls weren't just old, they were deliberately broken down, indefensible. There were no guards. When he tried to ask villagers about Nigan, they fled in terror. He found a farmer staring despondently at a field that had been trampled by monsters. You should just leave, the man said, his voice hollow. There's no hope here. No way in hell, Lupin said, his resolve hardening. I won't leave people to suffer under a madman. He knelt and placed his hands on the ruined earth. Channeling the nature magic he'd absorbed in the jungle dungeon, he pushed his energy into the soil. Before the farmer's disbelieving eyes, crops surged from the ground, ripe and abundant. Then, Lupin turned to the perimeter. With a grunt of effort, he summoned walls of reinforced titanium that erupted from the earth, complete with automated laser turrets that hummed to life. The farmer fell to his knees, not in despair, but in awe. The previous lord was kind like you. When he died and his son Nigan took over, everything fell apart. The Hydra appeared, and Nigan made his terrible deal. We lost all hope. But now I believe again. Lupin gave him a thumbs up. Everyone deserves to live. At that moment, Alice's voice screamed in his mind, a psychic warning. Master Lupin, a huge horde of monsters is coming from the forest. Lupin sprinted to the new wall and looked out. A tide of fur, fang, and claw, led by shrieking, ape-like creatures, was pouring from the tree line. Nigan had been right about one thing. Without the Hydra, the gates of hell had opened. So it's true, Lupin muttered. He took a deep, steadying breath. Then I'll just have to be the new gatekeeper. Lupin, what are you doing? Yuri asked, manifesting beside him. Something stupid, he said with a determined grin. I'm going to kill them all. He raised his arms, and the air around him crackled with immense power. I summon the army of the Azure Dragon. Portals of blue light tore open the sky. First, the Ultramarines arrived, their bolters roaring, chainswords revving. Then, OR-14ID defense robots from Overwatch touched down, their cannons swiveling to acquire targets. Heavy, four-legged artillery bots stamped into position, unleashing barrages into the advancing horde. The village watched, stunned, as a single man and his impossible army held the line against an ocean of monsters. Lupin was a whirlwind, his blades cutting down any beast that breached the gunline. But he was pushing himself too far. His mana was draining rapidly. Lupin, stop. You're overusing your power. You'll burn out. Ursula pleaded. I don't care. He grunted, decapitating a monster. I'll protect them. As more monsters flooded in, a new energy signature flared on his wrist, a device he hadn't noticed before. A command interface with 2 words, transform Tobots. Parked near the village wall, a fleet of vehicles suddenly activated. A sleek purple Tesla, a red sports car, and a yellow excavator lit up. Hey, boss, a voice chirped from the Tesla. Give the word and we'll transform and kick these monsters' asses. Lupin didn't hesitate. Tobots. Transform. The vehicles shifted and unfolded in a symphony of mechanical precision. The Tesla became Tobot Sonic, a sleek robot moving at blinding speeds. The sports car became Tobot a balanced warrior of hand-to-hand combat. The excavator became Tobot Chrome, a powerhouse of brute strength. Defend the village. Take them all down, Lupin commanded. The Tobots joined the fray, a new wave of devastating power. Sonic became a tornado, kicking monsters like soccer balls. Tobot smashed through ranks with powerful punches. Chrome used his excavator arm to hurl boulders into the heart of the horde. Lupin fought on, but his vision began to blur. He was at his absolute limit. As he stumbled, a group of monsters lunged for his exposed back. He couldn't react in time. But a white and red ambulance, which had been waiting quietly, transformed in a flash. A robot with a medical cross on its chest, Tobot M, leapt forward, shielding Lupin and catching him gently as he finally collapsed from exhaustion. Do not worry, Tobot M said in a calm, synthesized voice. You have saved them. Rest now. As Lupin's world faded to black, the last thing he saw was his army, man and machine, standing united against the darkness, holding the line for the village he had sworn to protect. Chapter 11. Unmasking the Puppet. The decision to imprison Nigan in his own dungeons was made, but as the villagers led the weeping, broken man away, Lupin felt a discordant note in the air, a faint, oily resonance that prickled against his senses. It was the same subtle wrongness he'd felt around the mansion, but now, stripped of his power and posturing, it emanated from Nigan himself like a sour perfume. Wait, Lupin's voice cut through the murmurs of the crowd. Everyone froze. The farmer holding Nigan's arm looked at Lupin, confused. Master Lupin, he deserves the darkness. He does, Lupin agreed, his eyes narrowed, studying Nigan. The former lord wasn't just crying in self-pity, his sobs had a ragged, desperate edge, and his eyes, when they flickered up, held flashes of something that wasn't quite human, a gleam of amber malice that vanished as quickly as it appeared. Ursula, Lupin thought, do you sense that? It's faint, deeply buried, Ursula's voice replied, tinged with distaste. It's not a possession, not fully. It's more like an infestation. A symbiotic parasite of the soul. A lesser demon of influence, a whisperer. Lupin stepped closer. Nigan flinched. Please, no more. I'll go quietly. It's not you I'm talking to, Lupin said, his voice low. He focused his mana sight. To his eyes, Nigan's pathetic aura was tangled with clinging, thorny vines of sickly yellow energy, rooted deep in his spirit, pulsing softly. It was the source of the cowardice, the cruel pragmatism, the willingness to make monstrous deals. You've had a passenger for a long time, haven't you? Lupin murmured. Since your father died. Maybe even before. Nigan's face contorted. For a second, his features seemed to blur, his voice dropping into a guttural hiss that was not his own. He was weak. We made him strong. We brought order. Then he clutched his head, whimpering. Make it stop. Its voice, it's always there, in my dreams, in my thoughts. The villagers recoiled in horror. A demon, not in the way you think, Lupin said, raising a hand for calm. It didn't possess him. It whispered. It amplified his worst instincts, his greed, his fear, his arrogance, and strangled his conscience. It made his cruelest ideas seem like genius. He looked at the terrified man. It made you a willing puppet, Nigan. But the strings were attached to your own soul. You can get it out. Nigan begged, a sliver of his true self breaking through. I can try. It won't absolve you of what you've done. Those choices, however influenced, were still made by your hand. You will still answer for them. But you can answer as yourself. Lupin turned to Yuri. I need a containment circle. Strong. This thing will try to flee or jump to a new host. Yuri nodded, her hands already glowing with sacred light. She began to inscribe a complex, shining circle on the stone floor of the great hall. Lupin guided Nigan to the center. The villagers watched, a mix of fear and grim fascination on their faces. "This will hurt," Lupin warned. "For both of you." He placed one hand on Nigan's forehead and the other over his heart. He reached not for his combat magic, but for the more delicate, profound energies he'd honed, a fusion of spirit purge and the intricate mana manipulation he'd learned. "Revelation of the bonded soul," Lupin intoned. Silver blue light, fine as spider silk yet unbreakable as adamantium, streamed from his hands and into Nigan. He wasn't attacking, he was mapping. The light traced the psychic and spiritual pathways, illuminating the connection between man and demon. The thorny vines glowed violently in response. The Whisperer demon, sensing true eradication, fought back. Nigan screamed, his body arching as the sickly yellow energy erupted from his pores, forming a nebulous, shrieking face in the air above him. "He is ours. His weakness invited us. His power fed us. You cannot sever the bargain." "The bargain is void," Lupin growled, his own spirit firm against the psychic assault. He saw the anchor points now, the moments of moral compromise, the first sanctioned sacrifice, the glee at newfound, fear-based control. Each was a hook. Lupin's silver light became a scalpel. Severance. With surgical precision, he cut. Not at Nigan's soul, but at the invasive hooks. Each snap sent a jolt through both man and demon. Nigan wept, experiencing the raw, unfiltered guilt of his actions for the first time. The demon shrieked in agony, its form destabilizing. Expulsion. Lupin clenched his fist and pulled. With a final, tearing sound that echoed in the mind, not the air, the entire writhing mass of yellow energy was ripped free from Nigan. The former lord collapsed, unconscious, but his face was now clean, his aura his own, weak and stained, but singular. The demonic mass, now just a coalesced blob of malice, tried to shoot towards the nearest villager. It slammed against Yuri's sacred containment circle with a sizzle, trapped. Lupin, breathing heavily from the spiritual exertion, looked at the pulsing entity. No more whispers. No more deals. He didn't need a grand spell. He raised a finger, a tiny, focused point of Ignis Tempestus flame, white-hot and pure. He touched it to the circle. The demon had no time to scream. It was unmade in an instant, a puff of acrid smoke that was swiftly purified by Yuri's lingering light. Silence. Then, a groan. Nigan stirred. He opened his eyes. They were clear, haunted, and utterly human. He looked at his hands, then at the faces of his people, and a wave of such profound horror and shame crossed his features that it was its own punishment. He remembered everything, now without the demon's justifying whisper. The weight of it crushed him. He is clean, Yuri confirmed, her divine senses sweeping over him. The farmer stepped forward, looking from the broken man to Lupin. "So, the demon made him do it?" "No," Lupin said, weary but firm. "The demon found fertile ground in his pride and fear and watered those seeds until they choked out everything else. He is still responsible. But now he can truly repent, or truly face judgment. That is for you to decide, now that you see the whole man." The villagers' anger remained, but it was now tempered with a terrible understanding. The monster in the mansion had been twofold, and one part was very, very human. The tribunal was swift and solemn. Held in the village square under the open sky, a deliberate contrast to Nigan's shadowed halls, the people heard their former lord speak with his own, untainted voice. He confessed to everything, his words not the grandiose justifications of before, but the flat, hollow admissions of a man staring into the abyss of his own making. He named dates, specific victims, the exact weight of gold accepted in lieu of a child from a richer family. The cruelty was his, the precision of it had been the demon's. The sentence was exile, not to the dungeon, but to the wilds beyond the new titanium walls. He would be stripped of his title and wealth, given only a simple tunic and a day's ration, and set outside the gate. To survive or not would be left to the world he had so callously ruled. "Mercy is more than you showed," the farmer, who had been elected as the interim headman, stated. "But it is what our old lord, your father, would have valued. May you find in the wilderness what you lost within these walls, a conscience." As the gates closed behind the stumbling figure, Lupin felt no triumph, only a grim sense of closure. The village was free, but the air still held a question. The forest whisperer, Alice's voice echoed in his mind, pulling up the digital ledger she had scanned. Payments quarterly, in raw gemstones, to a designation, WS. Delivery location, a stone cairn at the northern Blightmark. Asterisk. A Blightmark? Lupin asked, standing with Yuri on the wall as the village began its first true night of peace. A place where the land is sick, Yuri explained, her face troubled. Where nature magic withers and dark things gather. They are often cultivated. Cultivated by things that plant whisperer demons in weak lords, Lupin finished. The trail was hot. This was no random monster incursion. It was a campaign of subversion. At dawn, Lupin made his preparations. The Ultramarines would remain, 4 of them, under the command of a stalwart sergeant, to drill the new militia and reinforce the walls until they were truly self-sufficient. The OR-14 units would patrol. Tobot M, with its medical suite, would stay to tend to the people. Thank you, the headman said, gripping Lupin's forearm. You gave us back our future. We will defend it. Lupin nodded. I know you will. His own party was leaner, faster, meant for tracking and striking. Yuri, the 3 original Ultramarines, and the Tobots in their vehicle forms, Sonic, A, and Chrome. The sleek machines purred at the gate, ready to transform. North, Lupin said, swinging into the driver's seat of the purple Tesla that was Tobot Sonic. To the Blightmark. Let's go meet this Whisperer, and have a conversation about its retirement plan. The convoy rolled out, leaving the fortified village behind. They traveled for hours, the lush forest gradually changing. The green turned to a sickly gray-green, the air grew cold and still, and the sound of life faded. Trees stood as twisted, leafless sentinels over ground covered in a brittle, lichen-like fungus that pulsed with a faint violet light. This is it, Yuri whispered, her healing senses recoiling. The blight. It's artificial. A spiritual toxin. They found the cairn, a heap of black stones stacked in a crude altar. It reeked of old blood and stale magic. And beside it, the trail they sought. Not footprints, but a series of faint, shimmering impressions in the fungal growth, like those left by something that was not entirely solid. As Lupin examined the cairn, a sound drifted through the dead trees, a low, melodic humming that was beautiful and profoundly wrong. It slithered into the mind, promising power, offering solutions, whispering that surrender was strength. From the gloom between the twisted trunks, a figure emerged. It was tall, draped in robes of living shadow and rotten leaves. Its face was androgynous and pale, with eyes like chips of polished obsidian. In its long fingered hands, it cradled a pulsing, heart-like orb of concentrated blight. Welcome, it hissed, its voice the melody and the whisper. I am the Weaver Scribe. You have undone my careful work in the village. That was inefficient. So you're the sales representative, Lupin said, his hand resting on the hilt of his katana. The Tobots silently transformed behind him, taking up defensive positions. Selling demonic parasites to pathetic nobles. The weak will always seek strength. I merely provide the means, the Weaverscribe said, tilting its head. And you, Lupin, are an anomaly. A piece of chaos disrupting a beautiful pattern. The Silent Court does not appreciate anomalies. The Silent Court? Lupin asked, buying time as his team fanned out. The true power moving in the shadows. We do not conquer with armies. We cultivate despair. We harvest kingdoms from within, long before a sword is ever drawn. It raised the blight heart. This territory was a test. You have passed the first question. Now, face the second. It slammed the orb into the ground. The earth erupted. The fungal growth surged, forming into monstrous, semi-corpse shapes, blightwalkers. And from behind every dead tree, pairs of amber eyes opened. More whisperer demons, detached and hungry, swarmed into the air like malignant wasps. The Weaverscribe began to fade into the shadows, its voice trailing. Survive this proving ground, hero. And perhaps you will be worthy of the court's direct attention. Lupin drew his blades, blue energy crackling down their length. The Ultramarines, bolters roared to life. The Tobots powered up their weapons. They're not conquering, Lupin said, his voice cold with understanding. They're farming. And we just walked into the diseased field. Then we cleanse it, Yuri said, holy light bursting from her hands to form a protective dome against the psychic whispers. Lupin grinned, a fierce, wild expression. Tobots. Ultramarines. All units. Purge everything that isn't us. The blighted clearing erupted into light, sound, and fury as Lupin's small, elite force met the cultivated horror of the silent court head-on. The hunt for symptoms was over. The war against the disease had begun. They took Negan away, not with violent hatred, but with a solemn, resolute gravity. He would face a tribunal of his people, in full possession of his own guilty mind. On the battlements at dusk, Lupin felt a deeper unease. A whisperer demon doesn't just show up, he said to Yuri and Alice. It's a tool, a subtle one. Someone, or something, placed it, or created the conditions for it to thrive. The forest whisperer, from the ledgers, Alice thought to him. The payments. It wasn't a person. It was a title. Or a cover. Lupin nodded. This wasn't over. Fixing a kingdom meant more than toppling a tyrant and killing a monster. It meant pulling out the corruption by the root. They had removed a symptom, and a tool, but the hand that wielded it was still out there. He looked north, towards the deeper, older forests. The demonic activity we're tracking, this is part of it. A test of a new kind of warfare. Not just invasion, but corruption from within. He activated his comms. Ultramarines, maintain defensive patrols. Tobots, stand by. We move out at first light. The trail leads into the forest. Below, the village glowed with real, defensible light. They had their home back. And Lupin had a new, more insidious enemy to hunt. The fight for the kingdom was over. The war for its soul, he realized, had just begun. Chapter 12. The Next World Tree. The quiet peace of Lupin's mansion was broken by Alice's urgent entrance into the study. Her usual playful demeanor was replaced by a serious focus. Master Lupin, there's something important I need to discuss with you, she said, her voice uncharacteristically solemn. Before Lupin could respond, the door burst open again. Pina sauntered in, followed closely by Yuri. Oh ho, don't tell me you're finally going to try and confess your feelings for our dear Lupin. Pina teased, waggling her eyebrows. Thump. A massive, gray foot descended from above, gently but firmly pinning Pina to the floor. It was Matriarch, the African forest elephant. She let out a low, disapproving rumble, her intelligent eyes seeming to say, behave. Gah! Get off of me, you stupid pachyderm! Pina cried, squirming uselessly. Matriarch merely twitched her ear and pressed down a little more, eliciting a squeak from the demon-possessed girl. Lupin sighed, rubbing his temples. Anyway, ignore her. Go on, Alice. Tell us what's so important. It's about finding the rest of our sisters, Alice explained, her hands clasped together. We need to search for the other world trees. To protect them. Well, that's definitely a priority, Lupin agreed, his expression turning serious. Do you know where to start? Actually, someone showed me, Alice said, a little shyly. In a dream. I'm guessing it was one of your sisters. Lupin deduced. Yes, and maybe. Alice trailed off. A new, melodious voice filled the room, smooth and mature. I kind of agree with the young, handsome man. Lupin spun around. Lounging seductively on his bed, as if she had always been there, was a woman of breathtaking beauty. She had flowing blue hair and a voluptuous figure that was accentuated by an elegant, revealing dress. The most striking feature was the delicate blue cloth blindfold tied over her eyes. Who the hell are you? Lupin yelped, instinctively taking a step back. Every fiber of his old perverted self screamed in appreciation, but he forcefully shoved those feelings down. Professional. Be professional, you idiot. The woman simply smiled. Yuri, dear, come to me. Yuri's eyes widened in recognition and joy. Big sister. She launched herself at the woman for a hug, only to pass straight through her, tumbling onto the bedsheets. The woman's form flickered like a mirage. Ah, sorry, little one, the woman said with a soft, apologetic laugh. This is just a projection. My real body is quite far away. Sister Kirsch. Yuri pouted, disappointed. Pina, finally freed by a relenting matriarch, brushed herself off. Well, this is a surprise. Everyone, meet Kirsch, the second oldest of us World Tree spirits. And a notorious tease. Lupin's mind reeled. A World Tree spirit came to me. Voluntarily. In a projection. What's a projection? Yuri asked, tilting her head. Think of it like a very realistic illusion, Lupin explained, still staring at the shimmering form of Kirsch. Sometime later, I'll explain the technology from my world. But back to the point. He focused on Kirsch. Why are you here? Kirsch's projection floated closer to him, a sadistic, playful smile on her lips. So serious, she purred, her voice dripping with honeyed temptation. Lupin felt his resolve waver, a blush creeping up his neck. Damn it, act professional. Don't you dare mess this up. Sister. Alice snapped, her cheeks puffed out in jealousy. Stop hitting on him and get to the point. Kirsch sighed theatrically. So demanding. Very well. Right now, one of our world trees is being targeted by demons. Not mine, thankfully. It's May's tree, our youngest and most adorable sister. Her sanctuary is hidden within a dense forest dungeon, but she has no guardian. She is vulnerable. Lupin's playful mood vanished entirely, replaced by the cool focus of a strategist. Where is it? Ah, that is the question, Kirsch said. But there is a certain someone there who is waiting for you. They will guide you. Who? Lupin asked, confused. Kirsch's blindfolded face seemed to look right through him. Well, I haven't expected much from Yuri's fiancé. The word, fiancé, hung in the air, making Lupin's blush return full force. Before he could stammer a reply, Kirsch's projection began to fade. Remember, her voice echoed as she dissipated, the forest is cursed. Tread carefully. And hurry. With a final, playful wiggle, she was gone. Lupin took a deep breath, pushing down the whirlwind of emotions. All right, no time to waste. He looked at his companions. We're moving out. The journey was undertaken on a scale that would make armies tremble. Lupin rode atop Matriarch, the mighty African forest elephant. Eleanor and Love, the two African bush elephants, flanked them. Behind the pachyderm vanguard, the Tobots rolled in their vehicle forms. Tobot A, Sonic, Chrome, and M, a convoy of deadly potential. They arrived at the edge of a forest that felt wrong. The air was still and heavy, the trees twisted into agonized shapes. This was the cursed forest hiding May's world tree. Okay, this has to be the place, Lupin announced, his voice low. Look alive, everyone. We're walking into a trap. Roger that, Tobot M's voice came through the comms. Lupin, Ursula's voice whispered in his mind. This place is saturated with curses. Those who get infected lose their way, forever wandering. Be careful. Noted, Lupin murmured. He closed his eyes, focusing. He combined his appraisal skill with a trickle of power from Alice's 1,000-mile eye, layering magical sight over mystical insight. A safe path through the twisted woods began to glow faintly in his vision. They followed the path for a while, the silence unnerving. It's quiet, Pina noted, her voice uneasy. Too quiet. We haven't seen a single monster. They are here, Ursula corrected. They are not idiots. They are hiding from you because your power radiates like a beacon. They are afraid. Lupin could sense them now, hundreds of malevolent presences lurking just beyond the tree line, watching, waiting. He felt a grim satisfaction. Being too powerful to be bothered was a new and welcome experience. Just as he began to relax, Matriarch stopped. She raised her trunk and trumpeted a deep, warning sound that shook the leaves. What is it, girl? Lupin asked, following the direction of her trunk. A low drone filled the air, growing rapidly into a deafening buzz. A black cloud erupted from the canopy, a swarm of insects, but these were monstrously large, with metallic, sharp-looking stingers and glowing red eyes. Less than enemy, cursed hornet swarm, LVL 18 greater than. Less than ability, devouring swarm, paralytic sting greater than. Lupin's appraisal flickered, identifying the threat. But before he could act, a figure emerged from the swarm, a demon with the lower body of a giant hornet and the torso of a cruel-looking woman. Well, the demon hissed. You must be the strong human that's been causing so much trouble. Too bad. I, Hornet, have to kill you. Sorry, but I'm not here for pleasant talks, Lupin retorted, his eyes already scanning for the core of the swarm. To demonstrate her power, Hornet gestured. A large bear-like demon, caught in the open, was set upon by the swarm. In seconds, the creature was reduced to a clean-picked skeleton. The buzzing intensified as the swarm turned its attention to Lupin's group. A cold fear shot through Lupin. His elephants, they were massive targets. Tobots, transform. Defensive formation. Protect the elephants. As the robots shifted into their battle forms, Lupin raised his hands. I won't let you touch them. With a grunt of effort, he unleashed a massive dome of crackling electricity around his entire party. The swarm hit the barrier and erupted into pops of light and fried chitin, raining down around them. Hornet shrieked in fury. "You insect! You can't stop all of us!" Her form dissolved into the swarm, her voice echoing from 1,000 different points. "You'll never find my real body. Arrogance is your weakness," Lupin growled. "Ursula, find her." "Already done," Ursula replied. A targeting data stream flooded Lupin's vision, highlighting the one hornet that pulsed with a different, stronger magical signature. Lupin didn't need a grand spell. He pointed a single finger. 9 rains, fire bullet. A single, superheated projectile of fire shot from his fingertip. It weaved through the chaotic swarm with impossible precision, avoiding every other insect, and struck the queen hornet dead center. The swarm froze mid-buzz. Then, as one, the insects dropped lifelessly from the sky. From the pile of corpses, Hornet's true form reformed, coughing and wounded. "Impossible," she gasped, trying to crawl away. "How pathetic," a new, bored voice drawled. A portal of shadows opened, and a demon girl with lazy eyes, riding a zombie golf cart, emerged. It was Iona. She looked down at the injured Hornet with utter disdain. Please. Have mercy," Hornet begged. Iona didn't even blink. She raised a hand, and Hornet was vaporized into dust. "How useless." She then turned her bored gaze to Lupin. "Well, so you must be the human known as Lupin. You're more trouble than you're worth." A monstrous pressure erupted from Iona, trying to crush Lupin's will. Lupin didn't flinch. Instead, he stood straighter, and unleashed his own power, a wave of conqueror's haki amplified tenfold by his righteous fury. The very air crackled. The hidden monsters in the forest fled in a panicked stampede. Iona's eyes widened in shock as the pressure forced her to her knees. "Wah! How?" In a flash of lightning, Lupin was behind her, his hand on her shoulder. A draining spell activated, siphoning her demonic energy. "You demons never learn. Underestimate your opponents, and you die." Iona shrieked, pulling out ornate magical pistols and firing wildly. Lupin didn't move. Arcs of lightning leapt from his body, intercepting and vaporizing every shot. "What are you?" she screamed. "Some kind of devil." "That's rich, coming from you," Lupin laughed, a sound without humor. His katana was in his hand, blazing with electro energy. With movements too fast to see, he lashed out. Not to kill, but to dismantle. Iona's body was sliced into a dozen pieces, leaving only her head intact, her expression frozen in utter shock. Her eyes locked on the electro symbol glowing on his arm. Her mouth moved soundlessly. The son of the Raiden Shogun. With the last of her strength, she activated an emergency escape artifact. A portal swallowed her remains. "I'll get stronger. I swear it," her fading voice promised. Lupin let her go. His priority was the world tree. With Hornet and Iona gone, the forest's curses seemed to weaken. A hidden archway of glowing roots was revealed, leading deep into the earth. "Okay," Lupin said, taking a steadying breath. "Let's do this." He was about to step through when a blur of orange and black tackled him from the side. He landed with a grunt, looking up into the face of a girl with vibrant tiger ears and a tail, wearing form-fitting ninja gear. "So you must be Lupin," she said cheerfully, sniffing him before giving his cheek a rough, sandpapery lick. Yep, definitely him." "Gah, yeah, I am. Who in the world are you?" Lupin sputtered, pushing the very affectionate demihuman off him. She bounced to her feet and gave a formal bow. "You can call me Kunoichi. I am your humble servant and bodyguard, sent by your mother." She then pointed a thumb over her shoulder at a massive, serene-looking female Asian elephant, distinct from his African elephants by its smaller ears and lack of tusks. "And this is my partner, Dolores." Dolores ambled forward and used her trunk to affectionately nuzzle Kunoichi's head, the action accidentally, or perhaps purposely, pressing against the tiger girl's ample chest, making her purr contentedly. Lupin felt his face heat up again. Behind him, he could feel Alice's jealous glare burning a hole in the back of his head. "And why are you here exactly?" Alice demanded, stepping forward. Kunoichi grinned. "Like I said, Lord Lupin Lee Shogun is of noble blood, a descendant of the Raiden Shogunate. I'm here to walk by his side, protect him, and serve him in any way he, MMPH. She was cut off as Dolores's trunk gently wrapped around her mouth. Lupin was surprised, but a part of him felt a strange sense of rightness. He looked from the enthusiastic Kunoichi to the patient Dolores, and then to the archway leading to May. Someone, Kirsch mentioned, it had to be them. Okay, fine, he said, a small smile finally breaking through. Kunoichi, Dolores, you can come with us. Both girl and elephant expressed their joy, Kunoichi with a victorious cheer, Dolores with a soft, happy rumble. Together, the now even larger group stepped through the archway, ready to face whatever awaited them at the heart of the World Tree. Chapter 13 A New Horizon. Stepping through the archway was like passing into another world. The oppressive, cursed atmosphere of the forest vanished, replaced by the gentle warmth of a hidden sun and the soft chirping of birds. They stood in a breathtaking valley, a sanctuary untouched by time. Rolling green hills were dotted with quaint, thatch-roofed windmills, and at the center of it all stood a magnificent, luminous tree that pulsed with a soft, life-giving light, the World Tree of May. It's beautiful, Lupin breathed, the tension draining from his shoulders. His awe was interrupted as Yuri let out a cry of joy. Sister Kirsch. The real Kirsch, no longer a projection, stood waiting for them. She was even more stunning in person, her presence both serene and powerful. Yuri sprinted and launched herself into Kirsch's arms, this time making solid contact. Kirsch laughed, a sound like wind chimes, and spun her little sister around. Pina sauntered up next, a smirk on her face. She held up a hand for a high five. Kirsch, with an amused smile, reciprocated, but at the last second, Pina pulled her hand away and wiggled her fingers instead. Kirsch rolled her eyes behind her blindfold but played along with the silly gesture. Okay, now that is just the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my whole entire life, Lupin muttered, watching the bizarre greeting. Kirsch's blindfolded gaze then swept over Lupin's extraordinary entourage, the three massive elephants, the towering Tobots in their robot forms, and the new addition of the tiger-eared Kunoichi. Her eyebrows rose slightly. Well, isn't this quite the unusual retinue you've assembled? She remarked, a hint of amusement in her voice. Yeah, they're a handful. By the way, where's May? Lupin asked, his eyes scanning the peaceful village. Oh, don't worry, Kirsch said softly, pointing towards a small, ornate crib nestled in the roots of the World Tree. She's over there. She's taking her nap. Lupin crept closer. Inside the crib slept the youngest World Tree spirit. She was a small elf-like girl with soft, green hair and cheeks dusted with freckles, clutching a tiny leaf to her chest. Her breathing was deep and even. God damn, she's cute, Lupin whispered, his heart melting. Better not wake her up. He began to slowly back away, determined not to disturb her. His boot came down on a dry twig. Snap. The sound echoed in the quiet glade. May's eyes fluttered open. Big, emerald green orbs focused, blinked, and then locked directly onto Lupin's face, a strange man looming over her crib. A moment of silent, awkward confusion hung in the air. Then, May's lower lip began to tremble. A single tear welled up, and then she unleashed a wail that could shatter glass. Lupin shot into full-blown panic mode. No, 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 no. It's okay. Shish. Please don't cry. He waved his hands frantically, making a series of increasingly ridiculous and goofy faces. This only made things worse, amplifying her cries by 1,000. Oh God, oh God, oh God, why is this happening to me? He whimpered, utterly defeated by a toddler. Just as he was about to combust from stress, Yuri appeared at his side. Let me try. She leaned over the crib. May. It's me, Yuri. May's crying hiccuped to a stop. She recognized her sister. With a sniffle, she held up a half-finished crown of flowers, her big eyes welling with fresh tears of frustration this time. Yuri giggled. It's okay, we can finish it together. She then gently turned May to face Lupin. This is Lupin Lee Shogun. He's a friend. He's the one who chased all the scary demons away. May looked from Yuri to Lupin, her expression shifting from fear to curiosity, then to shame. She hid her face in her hands, peeking through her fingers. Sorry, she mumbled. Lupin's heart did a flip. It's all right, no harm done, he said, his voice gentle. Can I? He gestured to the crib. May nodded shyly. Lupin carefully reached in and lifted her out. She was light as a feather. She immediately snuggled into his chest, seeking comfort. Overcome with affection, Lupin gave her a soft pat on the head. He forgot his own strength. The pat, meant to be gentle, had the force of a light tap from a superhuman. With a startled yelp, May was launched from his arms like a rocket, sailing through the air in a high arc. Oh crap! Lupin screamed internally, his blood running cold. What was I thinking? The Tobots' heads all swiveled upwards in unison. Wow! Guess the boss really can't hold back his power, Tobot A observed. No kidding, Tobot Sonic agreed. Should one of us try to catch her? Tobot Chrome asked, calculating the trajectory. Don't worry, Kirsch said calmly, a knowing smile on her lips. I'm sure they will be fine. Just as May began to descend, Matriarch, the ever-watchful African forest elephant, took a single step forward and raised her trunk with the grace of a master catcher. She gently caught the falling May, cushioning her impact, and then just as gently lowered both the startled but unharmed child and a mortified Lupin to the ground. Silence. May blinked, looked at the kind-eyed giant who caught her, then looked at Lupin's horrified face. Instead of crying, she let out a giggle. Then another. Soon she was laughing, thinking it was a wonderful game. Kirsch and Pina burst out laughing. We have to give you credit, Lupin, Pina wheezed. You somehow managed to not make her cry by launching her into the sky. In that moment of relief and connection, Lupin felt a new power settle within him. A deep, symbiotic link to nature itself, a gift from the grateful world tree spirit. He could feel the whisper of every plant in the glade. Far away, in the depths of the demon realm, Tengu Shredder stood before a council of his most powerful warriors. Echidna was there, along with 5 other fearsome demons, each radiating immense power. This world is becoming compromised, Shredder's voice grated, echoing in the dark chamber. The human, Lupin, is a variable I did not anticipate. It is time to change the battlefield. He gestured to a swirling, unstable blue portal that crackled with alien energy. On the other side, glimpses of a strange world could be seen, towering cities of glass and steel, and vehicles that moved without horses. We will use this gateway. We will establish a new base in this world of advanced technology, where our enemy will not think to look for us. A red-haired Oni demon with curling horns grinned. Well, isn't that something interesting? A live, purple-haired demon with spectral wings nodded. This is going to make things a lot more entertaining. One by one, the 6 demon warriors stepped through the portal, followed by Shredder and a smirking Echidna, leaving their old world behind. Back at the castle now under Lupin's protection, a sense of peaceful routine had set in. Lupin was surprised to find a familiar face already there, diligently helping to clean the main hall, a young man with a proud bearing and features strikingly similar to his own. So, the prodigal brother finally decides to grace us with his presence, the young man said, not looking up from where he was polishing a suit of armor. Scaramouche, Lupin said, stunned. What are you doing here? Mother sent word. Said you'd gotten yourself into trouble, again, Scaramouche replied, finally meeting his brother's eyes. There was a neutral, almost grudging respect in his gaze. Someone has to keep you from burning the place down. They worked side by side, an unspoken truce between them. Even the elephants helped, using their trunks to spray water and clean the high castle walls. Later, as the sun began to set, Yuri found Lupin and took his hand. I have a surprise for you, she said, leading him to a chamber. Inside, surrounded by her sisters, was May. She was wearing a beautiful, tiny dress woven from living flowers and shimmering leaves. She did a little twirl, beaming up at him. Lupin felt his heart skip a beat, then race at lightspeed. God damn it, this is so pure. Times infinity. He screamed internally, utterly captivated by the adorable sight. Not to be outdone, he decided to change as well. He and Scaramouche returned wearing formal Japanese hakama, the dark fabric embroidered with the electro mitsudomo. The brothers shared a rare, genuine smile and even performed a traditional dance together under the lantern light, much to the delight of the onlookers. Lupin felt a profound happiness, a healing of old wounds. He stood on a balcony with Yuri later that night, looking out at the stars over his domain. This sense of adventure, he murmured, it feels like it's only just beginning. Yuri leaned her head on his shoulder. And we'll be with you. As they stood there, in a forest far from the castle, the same unstable blue portal that Shredder had used flickered to life between ancient trees. It hummed with alien energy, a silent promise of a conflict that would span worlds. The next adventure had already begun. Chapter 14, The Red Gate. The capital, now under Lupin's stewardship, was bustling with a newfound sense of security. As the newly appointed Lord Protector, he was overseeing the reconstruction when a familiar face, the farmer he had saved, approached him, his expression a mix of awe and concern. "My lord, there's something you need to see," the farmer said, bowing slightly. "A strange gate has appeared on the northern ridge. It's like nothing we've ever seen." Lupin's curiosity was piqued. "A gate? Show me." The journey was a long trek, but finally, they reached the site. There, humming with unstable energy, was a massive portal. Its frame was a twisting, crystalline structure, and within its center swirled a vortex of deepest blue, sparking with arcs of white lightning. Lupin had seen magic portals, demonic rifts, and dungeon entrances, but this was different. This felt alien. Ursula materialized beside him, her spectral form studying the anomaly. "That's strange," she murmured, her voice tense. "The mana signature is completely foreign. This is something abnormal. It doesn't belong to this world." Lupin stepped forward, raising a hand. He focused his appraisal skill, pushing his senses through the shimmering surface. A flood of information hit him. Biting cold, howling winds, the stark silence of a vast, snowy terrain. "It leads to an icy world," he reported, his brow furrowed in concentration. "And I can sense multiple people. They came from a different gate on the other side. They're not from here." "If that's so, then we should," the farmer began, but Lupin cut him off, his face grim. "No, look." The portal's hue began to shift, the calming blue darkening into a ominous, blood red. "A red gate. That means S-class or higher monsters are on the other side. I'm not risking any of you. I know many of you are brave, but I will not lead civilians into a death trap. I'll go in alone." Another citizen stepped forward. "But, my lord, if the gate closes." "I know," Lupin interrupted, his voice softer but firm. "I may not return for who knows how long. Because this gate, it doesn't just lead to another part of our world. I think it leads to my world. Or one very much like it." A wave of shock passed through the gathered crowd. Lupin took a deep breath. "I guess I never found the right time to tell you all. I'm not from this land. I'm from another world, one with advanced technology." A murmur of astonishment and shame rippled through them, shame for never asking, for never wondering about the origin of the man who had saved them. Seeing their resolve harden rather than break, Lupin relented. "Fine. A few of you may come. But only the strongest. The rest of you, defend the capital until I return." "I'm coming, obviously," a voice declared. Kunoichi stepped forward, her tail twitching with anticipation. "It's my duty to watch your back, my lord. And don't think you're going on an adventure without me, brother," another voice drawled. Scaramouche emerged from the crowd, polishing a dagger with a lazy smirk. "Someone has to keep you from doing anything too stupid." Lupin couldn't help but smile. "Well, isn't that flattering? Trying to watch my ass, Scara." "Always," his brother replied. With his team chosen, Lupin addressed the townsfolk one last time. "If I do not return, you must choose a steward to lead in my absence." "Understood." They nodded, a silent pact made. The three of them turned and stepped through the crimson vortex. The transition was instantaneous and brutal. They were hit by a wall of freezing wind and blinding snow. They stood in a dense, frostbitten forest. Left. Ursula's warning screamed in Lupin's mind. He reacted on instinct. A massive, ceramite shield from the Warhammer universe materialized on his arm, blocking a volley of icicle arrows. With his other hand, he summoned a sleek, alien weapon, a plasma rifle from the Halo universe. He took aim and fired. A bolt of superheated energy shot out, vaporizing an ice elf sniper perched in a tree. "Great observation skills, brother," Scaramouche remarked, already summoning shards of ice around his own hands. "Try not to piss me off while I'm using it," Lupin shot back, scanning the area with his enhanced senses. "Kunoichi, Scara, fan out. I'm picking up multiple life signs. They're splitting into two groups, one group is being hunted." Then he sensed it. A faint, flickering presence amidst the violent ones. Small, terrified, a child. "This way," Lupin yelled, breaking into a full-speed dash through the snow, his companions close behind. They burst into a clearing to a horrific sight. A young girl, no more than 5 years old with aquamarine hair tied in a small, bedraggled ponytail, was curled up and shivering on the ground. Surrounding her were 3 massive ice bears, saliva freezing on their fangs as they prepared to lunge. "So this is how I'm going to die," the girl whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. "My own parents abandoned me, and now..." She never finished her sentence. In a blur of motion and a crackle of lightning, Lupin was there. His katanas, infused with electro-energy, became blurs of light. In 3 precise strikes, the bears fell dead, their bodies smoking. The little girl looked up, her same aquamarine eyes wide with shock and fear, before she finally succumbed to exhaustion and cold, falling unconscious. "Tobot Sonic, now!" Lupin commanded. A portal swirled open and the sleek, purple robot emerged. "On it, boss!" He gently, ever so carefully, gathered the small girl in his large hands, cradling her protectively. "What the hell is a girl like her doing out here?" Tobot Sonic asked, his vocalizer tight with anger. "I have no idea," Lupin said, a cold fury burning in his eyes that had nothing to do with the temperature. "But abandoning a child to this, it's unforgivable." They made their way back towards the other human signatures, finding a group of survivors huddled together for warmth. Lupin could tell instantly from their clothing and gear they were from his world. Koreans. He quickly fabricated a cover story, introducing himself, Kunoichi, and Scaramouche as a specialist exploration party. He gestured to his brother, who gave a lazy, dismissive wave. "We found her being attacked by ice bears," Lupin explained, pointing to the unconscious girl in Tobot Sonic's hands. The group gasped, their faces a mixture of shock and horror. "What kind of sick bastard would do that to a child?" one of them muttered. But Lupin's attention was drawn to one man in the group, Chu, whose face was contorted not with sympathy, but with pure, unadulterated rage. His anger seemed directed at everyone, including the newcomers. And then, Lupin's eyes met another's. A young man with an intense gaze, standing slightly apart from the group. He radiated an aura of immense power and chilling calm. Their eyes locked, and a silent understanding passed between them. This man, Lupin sensed, was like him. A ruler of armies. A hunter of monsters. His power, it's somewhat similar to mine, Jinwoo thought, his expression unreadable. His power is just like mine, Lupin realized at the same moment. "I guess this must be fate," he said aloud, a faint smile touching his lips. The moment was shattered as the ice elf hunting party descended upon them. Jinwoo didn't hesitate. He raised a hand, and shadows erupted from the ground, solidifying into a legion of armored soldiers. Not to be outdone, Lupin grinned. "Let's not be outdone. Ultramarines, advance." Another portal tore open. This time, a squad of ultramarines clad in specialized white and gray winter armor marched forth, their bolters already humming. "We are ready, my Lord Emperor," Sergeant Titus announced. "Good. Now let's," Lupin began. "Hey now, don't think you're going to hog all the fun," Scaramouche interrupted, falling into a fighting stance. "Let's make it interesting. Let's see who can kill the most elves." "Don't think this is a game," Lupin warned, though a competitive glint was in his eye. "You don't have to admit it, but that other man, Sung Jinwoo, there's something profoundly interesting about his power. It mirrors yours, but born from a different darkness," Ursula observed. The 2 armies, one of shadow, one of ceramite and steel charged. The forest became a chaotic battlefield of roaring bolters, flashing blades, and erupting shadows. Scaramouche weaved through the fray, impaling elves on spikes of magical ice. Lupin became a storm of lightning, his poisoned blades moving faster than the eye could follow. Jinwoo focused on the elite ice elf leader, their duel a whirlwind of precise, deadly strikes. In the chaos, Lupin saw it. Chu, his face a mask of treachery, raised his weapon, aiming for Jinwoo's exposed back. Lupin moved in a flash of lightning. A small, conjured dagger appeared in his hand and flew through the air, finding its mark in Chu's throat before he could pull the trigger. The traitor fell, gurgling silently in the snow. Jinwoo glanced back, saw the dead traitor, and gave Lupin a single, curt nod of thanks. He then gestured, and a massive shadow, a tank-like behemoth named Iron, lumbered forward and consumed Chu's body, adding him to Jinwoo's army. With the leader defeated and their forces decimated, the remaining ice elves fled. The red gate behind them began to flicker and destabilize. "It's closing," someone yelled. Jinwoo's group immediately began rushing through. Lupin knew there was no time to return to his own world. His path was now tied to this one. Everyone, back to the mansion. Now, he commanded, opening a portal for his summoned forces. They obeyed, stepping back through all except for Tobot Sonic, who still cradled the unconscious girl. Lupin looked at Jinwoo, then at the closing gate. It seems our paths converge, Hunter. With a final glance at the icy world, Lupin, Kunoichi, Scaramouche, Tobot Sonic, and the rescued child stepped through the red gate, leaving one adventure behind and plunging headfirst into another. The portal sealed shut behind them, its crimson light dying away, leaving the snowy forest silent once more. Chapter 15. A New Home and a New Purpose. The world dissolved from a blur of white and cold into the familiar, grimy concrete of a soul back alley. The red gate sealed shut behind them with a final, silent flicker, leaving no trace of its existence. The sudden shift from a life or death battle to the mundane sounds of traffic and city life was jarring. Lupin, Scaramouche, and Kunoichi took a moment to orient themselves. Tobot Sonic, still in his formidable robot form, carefully adjusted his grip on the unconscious little girl in his arms. They were immediately met by the survivors from the gate, their faces pale with shock and grief. Baek Yunho, the leader of the White Tiger Guild, stepped forward, his expression a storm of anger and confusion. "Chu, he didn't make it," he stated, his voice heavy. His eyes then narrowed at the newcomers. "And who are you?" "Hunter Park." "Hunter Go. Explain yourselves." Before Jinwoo could respond, Lupin stepped forward, drawing Baek's intense glare. He gave a respectful, shallow bow. "I am Lupin Li Shogun. The man you speak of, Chu, was killed by my hand," Lupin stated, his voice clear and calm, devoid of boastfulness. The survivors gasped. He attempted to attack my team from behind and had already abandoned his own teammates to die. I acted to protect my own. For the necessity of the action, I am sorry for your loss. Baek was taken aback. He expected defiance or arrogance, not a calm admission and an apology that was both respectful and unyielding. His intimidating aura faltered slightly. Without waiting for further interrogation, Lupin's priority returned to the child. Tobot Sonic, vehicle mode. Now, we need to get her to a hospital. The sleek robot transformed in a fluid motion of shifting parts into a stunning purple Tesla Cybertruck. Lupin gently took the girl from its hands and placed her in the back seat, climbing in beside her. Kunoichi slid into the passenger seat while Scaramouche, with a look of distaste for the primitive vehicle, got in the back. As they sped through the streets, Yuri manifested in the seat next to the girl, her eyes wide with wonder. "So this is your homeworld," she whispered, gazing at the towering skyscrapers, neon signs, and the endless stream of cars. "You weren't kidding. It's loud, and bright, and so advanced." "I know," Lupin said, his focus on the girl whose forehead was growing increasingly warm. "But right now, we need to get this one help. She's burning up." They arrived at a modern hospital. The emergency room staff stared in bewilderment at the group. A man in formal Japanese attire, Scaramouche, a tiger-eared girl in ninja gear, Kunoichi, and Lupin, who carried a shivering, poorly dressed child out of a car that shouldn't exist. A nurse approached. "Sir, can I help you? I found this girl in a remote area. She's hypothermic and needs immediate attention," Lupin explained. "Are you her guardian? What is your relation?" the nurse asked, starting triage. Lupin fumbled for a moment, then pulled out a worn, plastic card from his wallet, his old hunter license. "I'm an hunter. I was on a survey mission when I found her." The nurse took the license, her eyebrows rising. "An F-rank hunter. And this license expired over a year ago." She looked from the license to Lupin, then to the incredibly advanced car outside. The math didn't add up. How could an F-rank, whose license was expired, afford such a vehicle and survive whatever ordeal the girl had been through? "I guess it has," Lupin said with a sigh, running a hand through his hair. "Look, I'll get it renewed. That's not important. Please, just make sure she's okay. I'll cover all the expenses. Whatever she needs." His genuine concern won over the nurse's confusion. They took the girl, whose name they still didn't know, away for treatment. Over the next few days, Lupin was a whirlwind of activity. He used a portion of his vast otherworldly wealth to acquire a secluded, sprawling property on the city's outskirts, part modern villa, part fortified compound built into a hillside, with enough land and privacy to accommodate his unique family and allies. He also returned to the hunter system. To rebuild his cover and steadily acclimate to this world's dungeons without drawing too much attention, he began tackling C-rank gates. To any observer, he was just a lucky, slightly skilled low-rank hunter getting by. But inside these dungeons, he was a force of nature. He used dungeon keys he'd collected, one transporting him to a surreal, blocky landscape of snow and ice, a Minecraft-like dungeon. There, he leveled up efficiently, his appraisal skill allowing him to find the best loot and avoid traps. He gained new abilities, like enchanting his katanas with a potent venom and summoning poison arrows. After clearing the snowy dungeon, he checked his status. Less than status, Lupin Lee Shogun greater than. Less than level, 550 greater than. Less than rank, F unregistered greater than. A smirk touched his lips. Would you look at that? I guess I really have gotten stronger. The dissonance between his actual power and his official ranking was both absurd and perfect for his needs. His most important task, however, was his daily visit to the hospital. The girl, whom the nurses had been calling Ivy, based on a note found in her pocket, was finally awake and recovering. When he entered her room, she shrank back in her bed, her aquamarine eyes wide with fear. Please don't hurt me, mister," she whispered, pulling the blankets up to her chin. Lupin's heart ached. He approached slowly, his movements deliberately non-threatening. "There's no need to be scared," he said softly. "You're safe now." He reached out and gently placed a hand on her head, stroking her hair. Ivy flinched at first, but then, she felt it. No malice. No anger. Just a profound, calming warmth and a sense of protection she had never known. Every gentle stroke felt like a balm on her lonely soul. A single tear traced a path down her cheek, but for the first time in her life, it was not a tear of sadness but of overwhelming relief. "Listen, kid," Lupin said, his voice still soft. "I was thinking, if you have nowhere else to go, I could take care of you. I could adopt you." Ivy's eyes went even wider. Really? Really? But first, what's your name?" The nurses said Ivy. She nodded shyly. Ivy. My name is Ivy. It's nice to meet you, Ivy. I'm Lupin." When she was discharged, he brought her to the new villa. Her jaw dropped as she saw the three elephants, Matriarch, Eleanor, and Love, in the spacious backyard. Her fear melted away into giggles as their trunks gently tickled her, their deep, rumbling sounds comforting rather than frightening. Lupin even gifted her a small, bouncing electro slime in a contained field, which she adored, its cheerful buzzing bringing a constant smile to her face. As he watched her, his appraisal skill activated on its own. Less than name, Ivy greater than. Less than title, the Forsaken greater than. Less than innate ability, Monster Tamer latent greater than. Less than affinity, Beast kinship greater than. So that was it. She wasn't just good with animals, she had a natural, magical gift for it. It explained her survival in the gate and her instant connection with the creatures. That evening, he made her a simple bowl of hot noodle soup. She ate it slowly, savoring every bite, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you," she said, her voice small but clear. "For everything." Watching May and Ivy later, playing jump rope with an elephant's trunk, Lupin felt a deep sense of rightness. He had a new purpose here, beyond just leveling up or fighting demons. But reality beckoned. He looked at his expired F-rank license. "This is going to be a real hassle," he sighed. "I need to get this updated, but I can't let them know what I really am." "Not yet. You plan to hide your true power level," Ursula mused in his mind. "A wise, if tedious, strategy. Come on now, don't be such a worrywart." Pina chimed in, materializing to poke his cheek. "Sooner or later, people will figure out you're an S-rank hunter, just like that Jinwoo fellow. You might as well flaunt it." "Pina, you're not helping at all," Alice scolded, appearing on his other side with a pout. Lupin ignored their bickering, his thoughts on Jinwoo. Their meeting felt like more than chance. The King of the Dead with his shadow army, and the Emperor of Electro with his legions from other worlds. It was a convergence, a twist of fate. But for now, his path was clear. He would walk into the Hunter Association tomorrow as an F rank. He would take their test. And he would control the outcome, revealing just enough to rise through the ranks at his own pace, all while protecting his new, unconventional family. He was ready. Chapter 16, From F to S. The morning air in Seoul was crisp, carrying the familiar scent of exhaust and anticipation. Lupin adjusted the collar of his jacket, a simple, modern garment that felt both strange and comforting after so long in fantasy robes. Beside him, Scaramouche looked utterly bored by the entire affair, while Kunoichi's tiger tail twitched with nervous energy. Their ride, the impossibly sleek form of Tobot Sonic in Cybertruck mode, drew stares as they pulled into the parking lot of the Hunters Association. The atmosphere inside the main hall was thick with tension and whispered conversations. All eyes were on one man, Sung Jinwoo, the recently reawakened E-rank who had become the center of countless rumors. But as Lupin's group entered, a portion of that attention shifted. The trio was an anomaly, an F-ranker with an expired license and two unknown companions whose aura screamed anything but low rank. Jinwoo's sharp eyes, accustomed to assessing threats, found Lupin's across the room. There was no hostility, only a deep, analytical curiosity. Jinwoo's senses, honed by his shadow army, told him this man was an outlier. The power he radiated was contained, suppressed, but it felt familiar. It wasn't shadows, but it was a similar paradigm shift, a system all its own. He was like me, Jinwoo thought. Weak, then strong. But his power, it smells of ozone and other worlds. Lupin met his gaze evenly. His own appraisal skill buzzed faintly, confirming his suspicions. Once an E-rank, reawakened, his power doesn't just mimic strength, it commands it, just like mine. He doesn't summon from games, he raises an army from the dead. A silent understanding passed between them, a recognition of two singular existences in a world of ordinary hunters. The reassessment began. Kunoichi went first. Her demonstration was a blur of acrobatic precision and demihuman strength that left the evaluators stunned. The result? A rank. Scaramouche was next. With a look of profound boredom, he summoned a swirling vortex of water that froze and shattered in a complex, beautiful, and terrifying display. He barely looked at the results. A- rank. He scoffed, as if insulted it wasn't higher. Finally, it was Lupin's turn. He shared a look with his brother and bodyguard, took a deep, steadying breath, and approached the black orb. He could feel Jinwoo's eyes on his back. The female evaluator gestured for him to place his hand on the device. He did. The orb remained dark for a heartbeat too long, and the evaluator sighed, ready to log another F rank. Then, the error messages started. The orb flickered wildly, screens glitching, numbers spiraling out of control. A senior technician rushed over, his face a mask of confusion and dawning awe. From the sidelines, a voice rang out, clear and shocked. Jinwoo SSI is confirmed. The 10th S rank of South Korea. The announcement was met with a wave of gasps and applause. But the technician at Lupin's station held up a hand, silencing the room. Wait, there's another reading. It's stabilizing. The numbers on Lupin's screen locked in. A hush fell over the hall. The technician turned, his voice trembling with disbelief. Lupin Lee Shogun. Reassessment complete. Rank, S. The silence broke into an uproar. 2 S ranks. In one day. From the lowest ranks to the pinnacle. Before the crowd could fully process it, the doors swung open. Choi Jongin, the guild master of the Hunters Guild, entered with an entourage, his presence commanding immediate respect. He smiled, a politician's smile, and approached the two new S ranks. Jinwoo SSI, Lee SSI, he began, his voice smooth. Congratulations. Such talent belongs with the best. The Hunters Guild would be honored too. He never finished. Jinwoo gave a slight, dismissive shake of his head and walked past him without a word. A collective gasp echoed through the hall. Lupin offered a shallow, apologetic bow. I appreciate the offer, Guild Master Choi. But I must also decline. He then turned and followed Jinwoo out, Scaramouche and Kunoichi falling in step behind him. The crowd was left in stunned silence. No way, a bystander whispered. He turned down Master Choi. That guy has some serious balls. Am I crazy? Another cried out. Choi Jongin stood frozen, his smile still plastered on his face, now utterly meaningless. Later, both Jinwoo and Lupin found themselves on the roster for the same mining operation, a practical, if mundane, assignment for hunters of any rank to earn quick cash. The irony was not lost on either of them. Just ironic at its finest, isn't it? Lupin remarked, leaning against a supply crate. Jinwoo gave a rare, almost imperceptible smirk. I could say the same thing about you. As they waited, the vice guild master of the hunters, Cha Hyun, arrived on site. Her senses, acutely tuned to powerful mana, immediately flared. She scanned the crowd of low-rank miners and hunters, a frown on her face. She could feel it, two immense, dense pools of power, eclipsing everything around them. But they were hidden, masked within the crowd, and she couldn't pinpoint the source. She shook her head, dismissing it as pre-operation jitters. Lupin and Jinwoo exchanged a glance, having felt her scan. They had successfully hidden their presence. Their satisfaction was short-lived. The whispers started among the miners. Did you hear? The guys who joined were an E rank and an F rank. E and F. You're kidding me. What the hell are they thinking? They decided to ignore the chatter until an arrogant miner, carrying a load of equipment, bumped hard into Jinwoo's shoulder. Hey, assholes. Watch where you're. The miner's words died in his throat. He found himself on the receiving end of two pairs of eyes. Lupin's gaze was like a live wire, crackling with a warning of imminent electrocution. Jinwoo's was worse, the absolute, emotionless void of a predator looking at something that had already ceased to exist. The miner's bravado evaporated. Sure, go ahead, he stammered, scrambling out of their way. Seriously, one miner muttered to another as they passed, are those two actually E and F rank? Once the mining began, the doubters were swiftly silenced. While Jinwoo worked with a quiet, relentless efficiency, Lupin decided on a more flamboyant approach. He dual-wielded pickaxes, moving with superhuman speed and precision. The rocks yielded to him as if made of butter, and he piled up ore at a rate that left the veteran miners and the site foreman staring in disbelief. During the lunch break, as the others rested, Lupin and Jinwoo looked toward the deeper, unexplored section of the mine, the sealed entrance to the actual dungeon. You two are certainly eager to take down an S-rank boss, Ursula's voice teased in Lupin's mind. Damn it, shut up, Lupin whispered back, irritated. Jinwoo, hearing the mutter, glanced at him but said nothing, his expression unreadable. They moved as one, slipping past the security perimeter with ease and arriving at the massive, ornate gate that sealed the dungeon boss. The air hummed with potent magic. Okay, let's do this, Lupin said, a grin spreading across his face as he summoned his crackling katanas. I'm always ready, Jinwoo replied, his own short words appearing in his hands in a puff of shadow. They shared a look, a moment of pure, battle-ready understanding between two kings. They raised their weapons, poised to breach the gate. A clear, authoritative voice rang out from behind them, freezing them in their tracks. What, exactly, do you two think you're doing? They turned slowly. Standing there, her hands on her hips and a stern look on her face, was Vice Guild Master Cha Hyun. She had followed them. Inside Lupin's mind, a single, coherent thought screamed over all others. Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, we're so busted. Chapter 17. Another red gate. The silence that followed Cha Hyun's question was deafening. Lupin and Jinwoo stood frozen, their backs to the massive dungeon gate, caught red-handed by one of the few S ranks in Korea who could actually pose a problem. We were careless. I should have sensed her presence, Jinwoo thought, his expression a mask of stoic calm that belied his internal calculation. Damn it all. I really hope you have a good excuse for this, buddy, because my mind is completely blank. Lupin's internal monologue was a full-blown panic attack. Jinwoo was the first to move. He turned slowly, his face the picture of bland innocence. I was trying to find my way back to the main shaft. I think I got lost. He gestured vaguely at Lupin. My buddy over here must have gotten turned around too. Lupin seized the lifeline. Yeah, just curious, that's all. He turned with a sheepish, apologetic smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. This place is like a maze. Cha Hyun's sharp eyes narrowed. You're both lost. It wasn't a question. Her gaze flicked between them, and for a split second, she could have sworn she'd seen the glint of drawn steel in their hands. Now, they were empty. Was I imagining it? She wondered, a flicker of doubt crossing her mind. Beyond this gate is a boss room, she stated, her voice leaving no room for argument. You will stay clear of it. Is that understood? Understood. Crystal clear. They answered in unison, their relief palpable. They gave her respectful nods and began to walk away, their pace a careful blend of casual and eager to depart. "Wait," Cha-hyun commanded suddenly. Both men froze mid-step. Slowly, they turned back to face her. She stepped closer, her nose subtly twitching. The strange, captivating scent she'd caught whiffs of in the main hall was here, intensified. From Jinwoo, it was a cool, dark, and ancient aroma, like the air after a storm in a deep forest. From Lupin, it was something else entirely, a sharp, electric ozone mixed with the smell of old books and something otherworldly. "Damn, what a freaky girl," Lupin muttered under his breath before he could stop himself. Cha-hyun's glare could have frozen lava. Lupin immediately threw his hands up in a placating gesture. "I mean, it's just unusual. The sniffing, very unusual. Is everything all right, Vice Guild Master?" Jinwoo asked, his voice even, diverting her attention. "I'm sorry," she said, her eyes still narrowed in suspicion. "But are you two really hunters?" She knew their official ranks were a joke, but the power she sensed from them, the scent, it didn't add up. "Technically, yes," Lupin said, forcing a smile as she scrutinized their hunter licenses once more. Eventually, she dismissed them with a wave, her mind racing. As they left, the two most powerful men in the mine shared a look of mutual understanding, that was far too close. The next day, they were back on the mining detail. The work was mundane, but both men found a strange peace in the physical labor. Jinwoo remembered the struggle of his E-rank days, a time before his power awakened. The simple act of earning a day's pay felt grounding. Lupin, too, focused on the rhythm of the work, a temporary respite from world-ending threats and demon lords. They worked with an efficiency that was 10 times that of any other miner, their enhanced strength making light work of the rock. During lunch, the atmosphere shifted. An A-rank hunter, Captain Gyu-sun, addressed the miners. The excavation team's porter didn't show. "We need a volunteer to carry equipment for the strike team heading deeper. Hazard pay is included." Most miners looked away, not wanting any part of a hunter's dangerous work. The foreman, seeing two eager and strong workers, pointed. "How about you two? Lee and Sung, you've been pulling your weight." And that's how Lupin, the S-rank who commanded armies from other dimensions, and Jinwoo, the Shadow Monarch, found themselves shouldering heavy equipment bags for a strike team composed of 6 A ranks and 3 B ranks. As they descended, Lupin's appraisal magic washed over the area, active and unseen. His smile faded. The mana signature here was wrong. It was too dense, too violent. This feeling, there's no doubt about it, he thought, his eyes meeting Jinwoo's. The Shadow Monarch gave a nearly imperceptible nod. He felt it too. This was no ordinary A-rank dungeon. This could be another Red Gate. A purple-haired hunter from the strike team, Han Semi, noticed their tension. "No need to be nervous," she said cheerfully to Lupin. "The captain and everyone else are super hunters. As long as you don't run off and give them an opening, nothing will attack you." "Thanks for the intel," Lupin replied, his voice tight. "I'll keep that in mind." The group pressed on until the captain called a halt. It was then that both Lupin and Jinwoo sensed it, a pack of creatures approaching. Not from ahead, but from the flanks. C-ranked jackals emerged from the shadows. The strike team was confused. Why are there jackals in an A-rank dungeon? But Lupin and Jinwoo saw what the others didn't. The jackals wore crude, magical collars. They weren't wild monsters, they were hunting hounds. Appraisal. High-level orc signatures ahead. Coordinated. Intelligent. Lupin's warning to himself was too late. The high orcs charged. The strike team was immediately thrown into chaos. The A ranks were powerful, but the orcs were numerous, organized, and hit with tactical precision. In the midst of the battle, Lupin and Jinwoo moved like ghosts. While a hunter was distracted parrying a blow, an orc would suddenly convulse and drop dead, a pinpoint lightning burn on its neck. Another would have its shadow come alive to trip it, leaving it vulnerable to a strike team member's attack. They were manipulating the battlefield without anyone noticing. Almost anyone. The glass mage, Lee Bora, watched them with sharp, intelligent eyes. She saw the strange coincidences, the way monsters fell around the two porters without ever seeming to attack them. Does he think we're stupid? She thought, her gaze locked on Lupin. The chumps. They must believe no one would notice. As the last orc fell, the strike team, battered but victorious, began to regroup and head for the exit. Their triumph was short-lived. A shimmering, crimson barrier sealed the tunnel ahead. "What is this?" Captain Gyu Sun yelled. The mages of the strike team immediately began casting spells against it. The result was catastrophic. The barrier absorbed their magic and retaliated, sending violent feedback that injured the casters. "It's no use. It's reflecting our attacks," one mage cried out. As panic began to set in, Lupin's appraisal skill pinged again. More signatures. Stronger. A leader. From the darkness behind them, a voice boomed, deep and guttural yet speaking perfect Korean. "Well done, great humans. You have cleared the initial filtration." A massive high orc, larger than the others and adorned with bones and trophies, stepped into the light. "I am called Karkar Gore." In the stunned silence, Han Semi, her hands trembling, shoved a small, leather-bound book into Lupin's hands. It was a diary she'd found on a dead hunter earlier. Outside the dungeon gate, Cha Hien arrived, feeling the sinister energy pouring from the entrance. This was definitely a red gate. And deep within the dungeon, seated on a throne of skulls and basalt, the true master of this game watched through the eyes of his orc general. He was draped in a dark hood, a skeletal mask obscuring his features. He leaned forward, his posture one of utter amusement. The hunt was beginning, and his new prey had finally arrived. Chapter 18. No longer hiding. The air in the cavern grew thick with the coppery scent of blood and ozone. The A-rank strike team, once confident, was now on the verge of being wiped out. Captain Sun, their leader, was being hurled through the air like a ragdoll by the massive high orc chieftain, Karkar Gore. He slammed against the cavern wall with a sickening crunch, his body slumping to the ground. Just as Karkar Gore raised his axe for the final blow, a blur of motion intercepted him. It wasn't a loud sound, but a definitive one. The sound of motion ceasing instantly. Lupin stood between the captain and the orc, his hand clamped around the monster's thick, weapon-wielding wrist, stopping the deadly descent with effortless, impossible strength. Karkar Gore's eyes bulged in shock. Another high orc, seeing its leader challenged, charged from the side with a guttural roar. Lupin didn't even turn. He simply reached out with his other hand, grabbed the charging orc by its face, and with a contemptuous flick of his wrist, yeeted the creature across the chamber. It crashed into the far wall in a burst of rock and bone, sliding down into a motionless heap. A stunned silence fell over the cavern, broken only by the crackle of Lupin's latent electrokinesis. He glanced over his shoulder at Jinwoo, a confident smirk playing on his lips. "If I may," Lupin said, pointing at himself and then at Jinwoo. "May we both have an approval to handle this?" Jinwoo, who had been observing with his usual detached calm, gave a single, slow nod. His voice was flat, yet it carried absolute finality. "Please do, by all means." It was not a request. It was a declaration. The two men turned to face the horde of high orcs. They didn't need to speak. A silent understanding passed between them, the time for hiding was over. Jinwoo raised a hand, and the shadows in the cavern writhed, deepened, and rose. From the darkness emerged his army. Hulking iron-clad soldiers, swift knights, and hulking giants, their forms coalescing from the very essence of the dungeon. The temperature dropped. Lupin, in turn, simply grinned. Let's show them what a real army looks like. With a series of shimmering, electric blue portals, his own forces materialized. The disciplined, power-armored forms of the Ultramarines stood in stark contrast to the jagged, alien geometry of the Null Sector robots. From among them, two distinct figures stepped forward, the hulking, shotgun-wielding Reaper and the swift, cyborg ninja Ramatra. "Try not to underestimate any of my boys here," Lupin Shogun said, his voice echoing with power. "Because you made a horrible mistake challenging the both of us." The battle that followed was not a fight, it was a slaughterhouse. The shadows of Jinwoo's army moved with silent, deadly precision, tearing through the orcish lines. The Ultramarines, bolters roared, their mass-reactive shells turning high orcs into crimson mist. Null Sector robots unleashed volleys of plasma fire, melting armor and flesh alike. Reaper became a whirlwind of death with his Hellfire shotguns, while Ramatra moved like lightning, his Void Accelerator cutting down any who approached. From a side tunnel, Cha Hien and the other hunters who had followed the commotion arrived, only to stop dead in their tracks. They stood in astonishment, watching the two, reporters, command a nightmarish symphony of destruction. The High Orcs, once a terrifying threat, were now being brutally dismantled from two fronts. Lupin and Jinwoo stood at the epicenter, side by side, a whirlwind of coordinated attacks. Lupin's crackling katanas carved through enemies while Jinwoo's short swords moved with blinding speed, their movements perfectly in sync. Karkar Gore, enraged, bellowed and began to glow with a violent red aura. His mana surged, and the bodies of his fallen warriors began to twitch and rise again, their eyes now burning with shadowy energy. "How long would it take for you to crumble?" the High Orc leader roared. "No matter how many soldiers you have, I will never give up." Jinwoo simply smirked. "That's what happens when you underestimate your opponents." He drank a mana potion, his power flaring anew. "I take notes on everything, my opponent's strengths and weaknesses." The shadows around him deepened, and the orcs he had slain began to rise again, this time under his command. Lupin smiled, tapping a finger to his temple. "Sometimes, you have to be prepared for the unexpected." As the battle raged, Lupin's HUD glitched for a split second. He saw it then, a flicker of code, a pattern in the orcs' mana that wasn't natural. It was programmed. These creatures were mindless drones, obeying a system, just cogs in a machine. He didn't say a word, but the realization settled heavily upon him. This was bigger than a random dungeon break. Together, Lupin and Jinwoo carved through the orcish generals with brutal efficiency. Just as the last one fell, Karkar Gore let out a final, desperate roar. His body began to swell, muscles bulging and skin splitting as he transformed into a monstrous, giant form. "Well, aren't you full of unusual surprises?" Lupin said with an amused smile. In a perfectly coordinated move, Lupin unleashed chains of crackling lightning that wrapped around the giant's limbs, holding it fast. In that split second of vulnerability, Jinwoo shot forward, his form a blur of shadow. He plunged his dagger deep into the creature's core, a finishing blow fueled by immense power. As the giant orc leader fell, a new shadow peeled away from its body, joining the ranks of Jinwoo's ever-growing army. The dungeon was silent once more. Later, as they prepared to leave the now cleared dungeon, both Lupin and Jinwoo knew their hunter's licenses would need to be re-evaluated. The charade was over. Meanwhile, outside the gate, a man smiled to himself, confident in his own power and rank. He was Sung Il-wan, Jinwoo's father. But little did he know that the world was about to be redefined, and two individuals were poised to achieve a rank far higher than his own. Chapter 19, The 10th and 11th. The Hunters Association was a fortress besieged by its own fame. Media vans lined the streets, their satellite dishes pointed skyward like a forest of metal trees. Cameramen and reporters jostled for position, a chaotic symphony of flashing lights and shouted questions. The air crackled with anticipation. Inside, Lupin and Jinwoo stood in a stark, soundproofed chamber, a world away from the chaos outside. The charade was over. This was turning into an impossible task, one of the senior technicians had admitted, his voice hushed. "We've been searching for tens of hours for a precedent, a regulation, anything. But there is no protocol for this. It hurts," Lupin muttered, the constant flash of cameras from the monitors giving him a headache. "No kidding. Let's get this over with," Jinwoo said, his voice a low, steady constant in the storm. Director Go, the chairman of the Korean Hunters Association, was waiting for them personally. He was a man who had seen the rise of every S-rank in the nation, but his eyes held a profound, awestruck gravity as he looked at the two young men before him. The reassessment was not a test of strength, but a demonstration of it. They were asked to prove the nature of their abilities. Jinwoo raised a hand. The shadows in the room deepened, and from them emerged his generals, Igris and Tank. They stood with silent, imposing loyalty, their undead forms radiating palpable power. Lupin, in turn, gave a confident smirk. With a crackle of ozone, a portal shimmered into existence. From it stepped a single, perfectly polished Ramater unit from Null Sector, its optical sensor glowing with a cool, calculating light, and a hulking ultramarine in blue ceramide armor, his helmeted gaze sweeping the room with imperial disdain. From the observation deck, Baek Yunho, White Tiger, and Choi Jong in Flaming Monarch watched, their usual composure shattered. They stood in astonishment. Jinwoo's army was a terrifying display of necromancy, a power thought to be myth. But Lupin's, his was something else entirely. It was a mystery of machines and advanced technology that seemed ripped from a video game world. Chairman Go could only stare, his mind reeling. The power these two young men wielded was beyond anything he could have ever imagined. It was no longer a matter of simple S rank, it was something further beyond, a paradigm shift in what it meant to be a hunter. After the demonstration, the formalities were swift. 2 new licenses were printed, the plastic still warm. Chairman Go presented them with a solemn bow. Lupin took his. He looked down at the card, at the name etched in official typography, Lee Shogun, Lupin. Rank, S. A single, uncontrollable tear traced a path down his cheek, followed by a smile that broke through all his usual bravado. Flashback. A younger Lupin, then known as an F rank, being shoved aside by a C rank hunter. Useless appraisal trash. Get out of the way, we have real work to do. The laughter of a crowd. The feeling of being less than nothing. Flashback end. He remembered it all. The mockery, the ridicule, all for a power they couldn't comprehend. An appraisal skill that had since evolved above and beyond its limits, allowing him to copy, adapt, and conquer. He was no longer that weak F ranker. He was royalty of the Shogun Empire, reborn. He finally had the life he wanted. No longer the world's greatest master thief, but reborn as an S-rank hunter, standing beside Sung Jinwoo. As they exited the building, they were met with a wall of sound and light. The media surge was immense. The headlines were already being written. The 10th and 11th S ranks of Korea. The nation's new shields. Lupin handled it with a natural, charismatic grace, waving and offering a friendly, photogenic smile to the cameras. Jinwoo, in contrast, simply walked through the chaos, his silence and impassive face speaking volumes, saying nothing for the time being. The news spread like a shockwave across the world. In a quiet hospital room, Jinwoo's sister, Jinna, saw the broadcast and smiled through her own tears of joy and relief. Her brother was safe, and he was a hero. In the shadows of his guild, Wang Dongsu, the slaughterer, watched the news with a dark, intrigued smile. The existence of another unknown S rank, this, Lupin, was a fascinating new variable. Elsewhere, in a dimension of swirling chaos and darkness, the demon lord Tengu Shredder watched the mortal news feed on a scrying pool, a devious, sinister smile spreading across his features. The 2 new S ranks were now prime targets. And in her library of countless worlds, the Witch of Greed, Echidna, observed the events on a television screen that shouldn't exist, her expression one of profound amusement. How interesting you have become, Lupin Lee Shogun, she murmured to the empty room. As the day wound down, the 2 new S ranks went their separate ways. Jinwoo's path was clear, he would immediately enter an S-ranked gate to retrieve the life-saving elixir for his mother. Lupin, however, chose a different path. He returned to the home he had built, the family he had gathered from across the worlds he had been isekai'd to. He was greeted by a wave of affection. His personal guards, the cheerful Mei and the serene Yuri, beamed with pride. He received enthusiastic, trunk-led, smooches, from his 2 elephant companions, Eleanor the matriarch and her calf, Love. No, 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 too much slobber. He laughed, trying to fend off the affectionate pachyderms. You did good, big brother, Mei said, her eyes shining. Only you could cause such a stir, master, Ivory added with a wry smile. Ursula, ever the strategist, floated nearby. So, what exactly do you have on your next agenda? Lupin's gaze swept over his strange, wonderful family. He saw Scaramouche, his younger biological brother, leaning against a doorway, giving him a simple, genuine thumbs up. The gesture meant more than any media cheer. Lupin looked back at the group, his heart full. I want to spend some family time with the family I have in front of me. Yuri didn't hesitate, she simply stepped forward and hugged him tightly. As he held her, Lupin looked out the window, flashbacks of his past life, the good, the bad, and the worst, flashing before his eyes. He was no longer Lupin III. He was Lupin Lee Shogun. But in the quiet of his heart, one memory ached, the face of his childhood girlfriend, Stephanie. The one person he had truly loved in his old life. He had no idea where she was, or if she was even alive. He pushed the thought aside. He had also overheard whispers of a future crisis, an event known as the Jeju Island Raid. It loomed on the horizon, a storm waiting to break. But for now, he would not dwell on lost loves or future battles. He knew he would unlock his full strength in time. That was a given. For the time being, he decided to actually, truly, enjoy the quiet and happy times with the family he had made. The calm before the storm was a gift, and he intended to cherish it. Halloween special. The Purple Gate. Halloween had descended upon Seoul, painting the city in shades of orange and black. While for most it was a night of spooky fun and candy, for hunters, the threats never truly took a break. Still, even they carved out time for family. Lupin Lee Shogun, the 11th S rank of Korea and son of the Raiden Shogun, was enjoying a rare moment of normalcy. He watched from a respectful distance as his two younger sisters, May and Ivy, dressed as a little witch and a black cat, went door to door with cheerful cries of, "Trick or treat." He decided against using any of his summons, not wanting to draw any more attention to himself than necessary. But as an S-rank hunter, a national celebrity, anonymity was a lost cause. Whispers followed him, and phones were constantly raised to take his picture. He noticed the homeowners, recognizing him, were especially generous, piling extra candy into his sister's bags. He wasn't the type to brag, but he couldn't deny the small, warm feeling of pride. As they turned a corner into a quieter, dimly lit street, the festive atmosphere shifted. The hair on the back of Lupin's neck stood on end. He felt a presence, a spatial distortion, but unlike any he'd sensed before. There, shimmering in the middle of the alleyway, was a gate. But it wasn't the familiar blue of a normal dungeon or the ominous crimson of a red gate. This one was a deep, pulsating violet. Well, now that's new, Lupin muttered to himself. A purple gate. No one will mind if I take a quick look, will they? He hurried back to his sisters. May, Ivy, stay right here. Don't move from this spot. Ivy said, her small voice laced with worry, Oni-chan, are you actually going to be alright? Lupin grinned, patting her head reassuringly. Relax, kiddo. Don't forget your big bro is an S rank. His smile tightened slightly. Though I never expected to find a purple gate of all things. But don't worry. After one last reassuring look, he turned and stepped through the violet haze. The world twisted and reformed. He wasn't in a cavern or a castle, but a forest under a sickly, purple moon. The trees were blocky and unnatural, the grass a pixelated carpet. The air hummed with a digital, malevolent energy. A Minecraft world. But, wrong, he thought, his senses on high alert. He remembered the horror stories, the creepypastas from his old life. The name surfaced in his mind like a ghost from a forgotten server, Herobrine. A guttural moan echoed. From the mist between the blocky trees shambled a figure. It was what once might have been a villager, but its skin was torn and bloody, its eyes glowing pure white. A bloody villager. Lupin didn't hesitate. In a blur of motion, he moved, his hand crackling with electro-energy. He didn't even need a weapon, a single, precise chop severed the creature's head. It dissolved into a puff of purple smoke, leaving behind a single rotten flesh. More emerged from the shadows. Dozens of them. All right, playtime's over, Lupin declared. With a series of electric cracks, portals tore open in the pixelated air. The disciplined, bolt-gun-wielding forms of the Ultramarines and the jagged, robotic null troopers marched forth, opening fire on the horde of horrific entities. The silence of the forest was shattered by the roar of bolters and the sizzle of plasma fire. From a great distance, perched atop a towering obsidian tree, a figure watched. His eyes were pure, pupil-less white, and he left no footprints in the blocky soil. The anomaly known as Herobrine observed Lupin's every move. Lupin Lee Shogun, he whispered, his voice like the grinding of chunks loading. Aren't you an interesting specimen? And then, he vanished. Lupin pressed on, his forces carving a path through blood golems and malfunctioning redstone monstrosities. His HUD flashed constantly. He was leveling up at an incredible rate, his power soaring past level 11,000. He even gathered rare items that materialized from the defeated mobs, a gleaming diamond sword and a lustrous golden sword. I can actually sell these to a guild or a blacksmith. This little detour might just pay for itself, he thought with a smirk. Suddenly, the air grew still and heavy. Lupin halted, raising a fist to stop his army. There, standing before him in the center of a clearing, was Herobrine. So, you must be Lupin, the entity said, its voice flat and devoid of life. You are not exactly human. Are you some kind of anomaly? Lupin grinned, his katanas materializing in his hands with an electric crackle. So what if I am? And what if I'm not? I may be a mysterious enigma to you. Your powers are unnatural, Herobrine stated. Something else beyond even my comprehension. Oh, what's the matter? Lupin mocked. Afraid? Then show me what you got, Herobrine challenged, its white eyes flaring. If you have the potential to actually defeat me. The battle was instant and cataclysmic. Herobrine moved with the glitching, unnatural speed of a lagging server, summoning pillars of earth and lightning. Lupin met him blow for blow, his electro powers surging to their maximum limit. He was a storm given human form. He noticed Herobrine's level was astronomically high, a number that should mean certain defeat. But Lupin had one final trick. His appraisal skill had been working overtime, analyzing the entity's digital code. Let's see how you handle this. Lupin yelled, channeling mana into a new, copied ability. A sickly green aura enveloped his blade, a potent poison effect. Herobrine staggered, amused and damaged. In that split second of vulnerability, Lupin unleashed the full, divine might of his Shogun lineage. The world turned white with the intensity of his electro power. He became a bolt of lightning, punching through Herobrine's defenses, driving him into the ground, and with one final, brilliant slash, severing the entity's head. The purple gate shuddered and collapsed behind him as he stepped back into the alley. The entire ordeal had taken only minutes in the real world. His two sisters rushed to him, their faces pale with worry. Don't worry, I'm fine, he said, his voice softening. He knelt down, showing them his otherworldly trophies. And look, I even got myself a couple of treats. Their eyes went wide with amazement at the glittering diamond and golden swords. Lupin laughed and patted them both on the head, his HUD confirming his new, staggering level, 2055. His mana pool and HP had broken past their previous limits, growing stronger once more. He had faced the ghost in the machine, and he had won. For an S-rank hunter, even Halloween was an adventure. Chapter 20, The Japanese Hunters. The training grounds buzzed with a tense energy. On one side, the Korean hunters stood with a disciplined, if wary, air. On the other, the Japanese S-rank delegation carried themselves with an aura of unshakable confidence, their power palpable. Lupin Lee Shogun, leaning casually against a wall with his brother Scaramouche at his side, observed it all through the analytical lens of his HUD. Names, estimated power levels, and potential combat styles flickered before his eyes. Matsumoto Shigeo. Goto Ryuji. Kanae Tawada. He was impressed. Their Fargo style, as his system categorized a common foundation in their stances, was refined, efficient, and lethal. HMPH. They look strong, Scaramouche muttered, a crackle of electro-energy dancing on his fingertips before vanishing. But untested. Everyone's untested until they're not, little brother, Lupin replied, his eyes never leaving the scene. Beside him, his younger sisters, Ivy and May, peeked out from behind his legs, their eyes wide at the assembly of the world's strongest. The friendly sparring had begun. It was a clash of nations without swords, a display of might and technique. The Korean hunters held their own with grit, but the sheer, polished power of the Japanese S ranks began to tell. Lupin watched, cataloging every movement, every flare of mana. Then it escalated. The Japanese hunter with the mask and eye patch, his HUD tagged him as Minoru Hoshino, his aura flared with a berserk intensity. His opponent, the blonde Korean hunter Cha Hae-in, was being overwhelmed, a killing blow imminent. Lupin and Sung Jin-woo moved as one. In a blur of shadow and a snap crackle of electrokinetic speed, they were in the ring. Jin-woo's sheer presence halted the berserker's advance, a wall of dark pressure. Lupin simply appeared between them, a hand raised, a cage of arcing electricity containing Hoshino's wild strike. The sudden intervention silenced the grounds. The leader of the Japanese contingent, Goto Ryuji, stepped forward, his gaze sharp. He examined Lupin, sensing the unique, dual-natured power thrumming within him, the structured, royal electro might and the wild, cunning thief spirit. Korean, you are different, Goto stated in Japanese, his voice low and measured. Your power, it's something else. Thanks to the system, I got the translation, Lupin thought, a smirk playing on his lips. Aloud, he answered smoothly, well, thank you for the compliment. Show me what you've got then, Goto challenged, his stance shifting into one of impeccable readiness. The 11th S rank of Korea. I could say the same about you, Lupin countered. The fight was a spectacle. Goto Ryuji was a monster of pure physical power and technique, his punches carving through the air with force that could shatter concrete bunkers. Lupin, however, was a ghost. He weaved, ducked, and flowed around every blow with the impossible agility of a master thief enhanced by video game physics. He wasn't just dodging, he was analyzing, his HUD predicting trajectories, finding openings. But the condescension in the air, the lingering sense of Japanese superiority, grated on him. A spark of royal arrogance, a legacy of the shogun blood, mixed with the thief's pride. "Let me show you," Lupin said, his voice dropping an octave, electricity beginning to wreath his body. Japan's Astra, counter. The air grew heavy. Behind Lupin, a colossal arm of pure, crackling electrokinetic energy manifested, its fist clenched, humming with apocalyptic power. The ground itself trembled. Goto Ryuji's eyes widened a fraction, the first crack in his composure. Lupin was poised to unleash it, to end the match with a statement that would shake the very foundations of the hunter hierarchy. "Boss, calm down," a metallic voice boomed. A blur of red and silver shot between them. With a series of rapid, mechanical clangs and shunks, the sports car they arrived in, Tobot A, transformed, unfolding into his full robotic glory. His large hands gently but firmly caught Lupin's electro arm and pushed it downward, dispersing the energy into harmless sparks that danced across the floor. "Just calm down," Tobot A repeated, his optic sensors glowing with concern. The silence was absolute, broken only by the fading crackle of electricity and the hum of Tobot A's systems. Every hunter, Korean and Japanese alike, stared in stunned disbelief at the giant transforming robot that had just materialized in their midst. Lupin blinked, the red haze of fury clearing from his vision. He took a deep breath. "Sorry, Tobot. I got carried away." Tobot nodded, his faceplate expressionless but his posture relaxing. He gently set Lupin down, then extended a hand, palm open. Small cooling vents activated, blowing a gentle, cool breeze over his overheated creator. It was then that a small, odd voice piped up. "You're so cool." May was staring at Tobot A, her eyes shining like stars. Ivy, equally mesmerized, stepped closer. "I've never seen a transforming mechanical being like you before." Tobot A's optics shifted, taking on a sheepish, almost embarrassed hue. He awkwardly scratched the back of his head with a metallic clink. "Well, thank you so much, kiddos," he said, his voice modulator softening. He reached out and gently patted Ivy's head with surprising delicacy. The tension shattered, replaced by bewildered curiosity. Go Gun-hee, watching from the sidelines, saw an opportunity. Later, he formally extended the invitation to Lupin, join the Jeju Island raid. Lupin agreed. The island promised experience, challenge, and a chance to test his growing power against a true horde. "I'll need some time to prepare," he said, his mind already racing through his inventory of summons and upgrades. Meanwhile, in the shadows, far from the concerned eyes of humanity's hunters, in a dimension steeped in malice, a council observed. Tengu Shredder watched the scenes from Jeju's pre-raid preparations through a scrying pool, his red eyes glowing with fury behind his demonic mask. Around him, other demon lords and vile entities stirred. "It is time," Shredder's voice rasped, echoing in the dark chamber. "We move to Jeju Island. Let us see if these S-rank hunters of Japan and Korea prove a worthy fight." Among the assembled horrors, a dark elf of terrifying beauty, Achina, smiled. Her senses had stretched across the world, touching upon two unique, monarchical auras amidst the human ranks. "I sense them," she purred. "The Shadow Monarch, and a new one. An Electro Monarch. Let us see how strong these two pretenders to the throne are against a true demon army." "Attack the Electro Monarch first," Tengu Shredder commanded, his gaze fixed on the image of Lupin, who was now laughing as Tobot A gave his sisters a careful ride on his shoulders. "Let his lightning be the first to be extinguished in the coming darkness." As the orders were given, legions of demons began to mobilize, their portals aligning to a single, bloody destination. The raid on Jeju Island was about to begin. But neither the united hunters of Korea and Japan, nor the confident Lupin Lee Shogun, knew that a third, far more malevolent party had just RSVP'd to the battle. The stage was set for a three-way war. Chapter 21. Jeju Island Raid, Part 1. The world held its breath. The combined might of Korea's and Japan's elite S-rank hunters assembled for the most critical operation in modern history, the reclamation of Jeju Island from the monstrous ant horde. But two notable figures were conspicuously absent from the official roster. Sung Jin-woo and Lupin Lee Shogun watched from the periphery, their decision made. They would not join the frontal assault. Jin-woo's shadows moved with a purpose only he understood, while Lupin's reasoning was born from a thief's instinct and a monarch's foresight. "I don't like it," Scaramouche grumbled, leaning against a tree as they stood in a hyper-realistic jungle clearing. The air hummed with digital pollen and the chirps of pixelated birds. Lupin had found a unique training ground. A secret dungeon, modeled after the Minecraft universe, a pocket dimension where the rules were malleable and the experience was plentiful. "We wait," Lupin said, his eyes closed as his HUD processed the carnage unfolding thousands of virtual blocks away. His summoned ultramarines moved in perfect sync, their bolters roaring as they purged waves of swamp zombies. "Then we strike at the opportune moment." "You think there will be an opportune moment in that meat grinder?" Kachua asked, her tiger tail lashing. "Not from the ants," Lupin clarified, his voice dropping. "I mean a third party. One not on Japan or Korea's guest list. Something waiting in the wings to crash the party, likely with me at the top of its hit list." As if to punctuate his point, the enormous African forest elephant, Eleanor, trumpeted. She used her powerful trunk to hurl a cluster of creepers into the air before they could detonate, then brought her front legs down with a ground-shaking crash, flattening a mob of skeletons. Nearby, Dolores, a stately Asian elephant companion, simply sat on a charging zombie horde, ending the threat with absurd finality. Lupin's forces were leveling up, growing stronger by the minute. Null sector troopers provided suppressing fire, their plasma rounds cutting through the digital foliage. He was preparing not for ants, but for something far more cunning. On Jeju Island, the raid began with brutal efficiency. The Korean hunters plunged into the heart of the ant nest, a grim, dark warren of chitin and acid. The Japanese S-ranks formed a devastating perimeter outside, a wall of supreme power meant to cleanse the island. It was a sound strategy. Until it wasn't. Something moved among the ants. Faster. Smarter. A lethal shadow that didn't belong to the hive. A flash of a side-like limb. One of the Japanese hunters, Atsushi Kumamoto, didn't even have time to scream before his head was separated from his shoulders. Panic, cold and sudden, spiked through the elite ranks. The special ant, a creature of horrifying speed and intelligence, was among them. It moved like a ghost, a reaper woven from nightmare chitin. It targeted the leadership, the linchpins of their formation. Goto Ryuji, the pillar of Japanese strength, roared in defiance, meeting the creature's charge. The clash was titanic, a shockwave of pure force leveling the surrounding ruins. But the ant was a predator designed to kill monarchs. With a final, devastating strike, it pierced Goto's legendary defense. The unthinkable happened. The leader of Japan's hunters fell. It was at this moment of cascading disaster that the two who had held back arrived. A tide of shadows erupted from the ground, soldiers of darkness rising to meet the ant horde. Sung Jin-woo had entered the fray, his gaze locked on the special ant with chilling focus. He would handle the kingdom's ruler. Clear the board. Lupin's voice cut through the chaos. He descended not from a helicopter, but from the sky itself, surfing a bolt of lightning that cratered the ground where he landed. Behind him, portals of light shimmered into existence. From one marched a squad of ultramarines, their blue ceramite stark against the island's gloom, chants of battle on their lips. From another glided null sector omnics, their weapons systems humming to life. Electro-summoned samurai, Akimusha and Kairagi, materialized in crackles of purple lightning, their blades drawn. Lupin's private army slammed into the flanks of the ant swarm, a coordinated, multifaceted assault that instantly relieved the pressure on the reeling hunters. But Lupin wasn't looking at the ants. His HUD was screaming, his electricity detection and appraisal skills pinging on a concentration of malice so dense it felt like a physical weight. He turned, his electro-katana already in hand, its blade buzzing with contained power. "I know you're here," Lupin called out, his voice calm. You can stop hiding in the wings, Tengu Shredder. The stage is set. From the deep shadows of a shattered skyscraper, laughter echoed, a dry, rasping sound that promised pain. Figures emerged. Tengu Shredder, his demonic mask glowing with infernal light, stepped forward. Beside him, the dark elf China smiled, a cruel and beautiful thing. And behind them, pouring from ruptures in reality itself, came the third party, a horde of demons, their forms of blasphemy against nature. So you finally reveal yourself, Lupin said, leaping down from the rubble. He landed gently, electrokinesis cushioning his fall, and stared directly at his ancient foe from another world. Let the true battle for Jeju Island begin, Tengu Shredder intoned, drawing a wicked, serrated blade that wept shadows. A fierce grin spread across Lupin's face. He raised both katanas, electricity arcing between them. I thought you'd never ask. Chapter 22, Jeju Island Raid, Part 2. Chaos redefined itself. The Jeju Island raid was now a three-way war, humans versus ants versus demons. The Japanese hunters, already bloodied and leaderless, were pushed to the brink of annihilation. Sung Jin Woo, a storm of darkness, was a world away, dueling the special ant in a private, cataclysmic battle. Lupin Lee Shogun stood as the dam against the demonic tide. Full deployment. Clear them out, he commanded. 1,000 points of light answered. The air filled with the roar of bolt guns, the hiss-crack of plasma, the war cries of electro-samurai, and the mechanical whir of null sector drones. Scaramouche was a living thunderstorm, weaving through demons and unleashing localized lightning strikes that turned groups to ash. Quechua was a blur of claws and fury, her tiger instincts making her a peerless demon slayer. It was a brutal, beautiful, and bloody symphony of violence. Lupin's summoned armies were not just powerful, they were tactically coordinated by a mind with a thief's cunning and a general's HUD. In a brief lull, Yuri's voice cut through the din, not with a battle cry, but with a heartbroken whisper. Sister. She had seen her. A China, the dark elf, stood atop a pile of rubble, directing lesser demons with a casual flick of her wrist. Yuri's face was a mask of devastation. A China glanced over, her beautiful features twisting with disdain. Don't misunderstand, little sister. You serve a human. I serve a superior being. Master Shredder offers true power, not this sentiment. The betrayal struck Yuri like a physical blow, but there was no time to grieve. The centerpiece of the chaos was the duel. Lupin versus Tengu Shredder. It was a clash of eras and identities, the master thief turned electro-monarch against the demonic warlord from his forgotten past. They moved in impossible blurs, katanas meeting shadow-forged steel in showers of sparks and dark energy. Lupin flowed around Shredder's attacks, his video game physics and thief's agility allowing him to dodge blows that should have connected. Enough of this. Tengu Shredder roared, frustration bleeding into his voice. Time to unleash my true power. The demonic energy around him exploded. His form twisted, expanded, shattered. Where the armored warlord stood now towered a true demon form, a colossal, winged monstrosity of muscle, fang, and raw hatred. The power spike was immense, warping the air and shaking the very island. Lupin's eyes widened. He moved to evade, but the demon's speed had multiplied. A massive, clawed fist, moving faster than sight, shot forward. Thud. The sound was sickeningly final. Lupin looked down. A demonic claw, thicker than his torso, was buried in his chest. He coughed, a spray of crimson staining the air. His katanas slipped from nerveless fingers, clattering to the ground. No. The scream was torn from Yuri's throat. She collapsed to her knees, her world shattering. Scaramouche froze, his electro powers sputtering out in his shock. Brother. Reaper, the null sector commander, halted its advance, processing the catastrophic event. Tengu Shredder laughed, a sound that rolled like thunder. He ripped his arm back, flinging Lupin's limp body like a ragdoll in a high, terrible arc out over the crashing waves of the ocean. The body hit the water and, swallowed by the dark, began its descent into the lightless depths. WHO will stop me now. The demon bellowed, its voice echoing across the battlefield. Not your weak ranks. And certainly not that thief. Yuri sobbed into her hands. The hope of the battle seemed to drain away with Lupin's sinking form. The spirit realm, the void between. Lupin opened his eyes to infinite whiteness. God damn it, he muttered, pushing himself up onto intangible hands. I died again. Are you really going to give up that easily? A familiar, roguish voice asked. Lupin turned. Floating before him was a translucent figure in a red jacket and with a knowing smirk. It was him, the original spirit of Arsène Lupin III. What? Lupin Lee Shogun breathed. Come on, man, the original Lupin chided, floating around him. You can't clock out now. You've got a full house waiting for you. The girls, your brother, your crazy robot pals, and that tiger girl who's probably wrecking the place in grief. Memories flooded Lupin, Ivy's and May's bright smiles, the weight of Eleanor's trusting trunk in his hand, Yuri's fierce blush, Scaramouche's reluctant respect. A fire rekindled in his eyes. Are you willing to take on my power? To become the true successor of the Electro Monarch? A new, resonant voice filled the void. A figure sat upon a throne of crackling lightning and storm clouds. He was regal, ancient, and powerful, the spectral form of Barbados, the original Electro Monarch. Who, what are you? Lupin asked. I am Barbados. I fell in battle alongside my brother, the Shadow Monarch, long ago. I have waited for a successor worthy of the storm's wrath and its protection. Why me? The monarch's gaze was like being struck by lightning. Because you fight not just for power, but for those beside you. You have the heart of a protector beneath the guise of a trickster. The coming monarch war will need that. Will you take up the mantle? Will you become the shield in the storm? The original Lupin's spirit winked at him. Go on, kid. Show him what the Lupin legacy is really about. The original spirit flowed forward, merging with Lupin Lee Shogun. In that moment, the soul was complete. The cunning of the phantom thief fused perfectly with the resolve of the Shogun's heir. Lupin Lee Shogun looked at Barbados, his expression settled into one of absolute determination. I accept. Let me be the Electro Monarch. Barbados smiled. Then arise. Monarch. Jeju Island, the real world. Tengu Shredder, in his demonic form, was reveling in his victory, preparing to turn the full force of his army on the bereft hunters. Suddenly, the sea began to boil. A column of pure, concentrated lightning erupted from the depths, piercing the sky. From the heart of the maelstrom, a figure ascended. Lupin Lee Shogun, reborn. The horrific wound in his chest was gone, sealed without a scar. His eyes glowed with the full, terrifying voltage of a monarch's power. Electro energy cascaded off him like a living aurora. What? Impossible. Tengu Shredder roared. I am Lupin Lee Shogun. The voice was calm, yet it carried over the battlefield like the rumble before a storm. The Electro Monarch. And your reign of terror ends here. Now. He moved. Not with speed, but with the instantaneous travel of lightning itself. He appeared before the Demon Lord and unleashed a series of blows that weren't just physical strikes, they were concentrated thunderstorms given form. Tengu Shredder, desperate, transformed further, his body contorting into the shape of a colossal shadow dragon. He snapped his mighty jaws around Lupin's torso. Lupin didn't scream. He gritted his teeth, wrapped his arms around the dragon's lower jaw, and punched upward with electrified fists, once, twice, blows that cracked demonic bone. With a roar of effort fueled by monarchical power, he performed a colossal suplex, hurling the dragon form into the remains of a hotel. Yuri watched, tears still on her cheeks, but now mixed with stunned hope. Sung Jin-woo, having dispatched his own foe, watched from a distance, a faint, knowing smile on his lips. Another monarch has awakened. The battle concluded with Lupin channeling the entirety of his new power into a single, vertical slash. A line of purple-white energy, a cleaver of divine lightning, fell upon Tengu Shredder. The demon's form shattered, not with a bang, but with a silent, dissolving scream, vanished back to the depths from whence it came. In the aftermath, amidst the mourning for the fallen hunters like Goto Ryuji, Lupin found Yuri. She hugged him fiercely, then slapped his shoulder, crying and laughing. You stupid, reckless, wonderful jerk. I thought you were. He gently placed a finger on her lips, a soft crackle of harmless static kissing them. I know. But a monarch, he said, his gaze sweeping over his relieved brother, his summoned allies, and the surviving hunters, is very hard to kill. Epilogue. The Shogun Guild. Weeks later, the world celebrated its twin saviors, Sung Jin-woo, the Shadow Monarch, and the newly acclaimed Electro Monarch, Lupin Lee Shogun. While Jin-woo rebuilt the Hunters Association, Lupin founded his own. He called it the Shogun Guild. Its headquarters was a unique fusion of Japanese architectural elegance and Korean modernism, a symbol of the unity forged in the fire of Jeju Island. The guild's rules were simple, etched on a plaque in the main hall. No discrimination. Rank does not determine worth. No tyranny. The strong protect the weak, they do not prey upon them. Equality. Every life under this banner has value. It became a beacon for young hunters, a place where power was tempered with principle, guided by a leader who understood both the view from the bottom and the burden at the top. Lupin knew this peace was fragile. As he stood on the balcony of the guild, watching Ivy and May playfully try to climb a patient toboggan, he felt the storm on the horizon. The monarchs were stirring. His ascension had likely been a beacon to them as well. Somewhere in the darkness, in a realm of healing ichor and whispered agony, Tengu Shredder's form slowly knit itself back together. The humiliation was a poison worse than any wound. Echidna, the witch of greed, observed him with clinical interest. I underestimated the human. He is, more than he appears. He is a monarch, Shredder rasped, his voice a ruined thing. Lupin Lee Shogun, the Electro-Monarch. He clenched a fist, dark energy pulsing. This changes the game. Around them, in shadows even deeper, other presences lurked. Ancient, hungry, and patient. The true monarchs, the rulers of the abyss, were finally turning their gaze to the world of man. They had felt the awakening of two new sovereigns, one of shadow, one of storm. The pieces were moving. The long-prepared, devastating war for the planet was quietly, inexorably, beginning. And Lupin Lee Shogun, the thief-turned-king, stood directly in its path. And this is the end of this amazing epic crossover what if movie. If you want to see more amazing crossover what ifs, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel to see more amazing content.